it now. And things to monitor.
Did you send her the link you received or just the attendee link?
The link I received.
Okay, that won't work for her. I can shoot her an email real quick.
Oh, okay. Okay, given that, we'll start the meeting now. Welcome to the Salt Lake City Planning Division, the Planning Commission meeting for January 26th, 2022. I don't need to read the statement of meeting offsite as I did that earlier this month. So we will just kind of move along as Adrienne checks in. A report of the chair. I just want to say thank you all for responding to the attendance requests so timely this month. And I appreciate that, as well as I'm sure staff does. Report of the vice chair, Maureen?
I have nothing.
Okay. Tonight, the report of the director would be Michaela.
I don't have anything to report other than I miss you all. I feel like I haven't been here for a while.
True.
That's all.
Well, that was quick. Has Adrienne successfully logged on yet? No. No, I was counting on a report from you, Michaela.
I just sent Adrienne a link. She just joined. If somebody could move her over to the participants list.
Wonderful. Okay, then we will move on to our agenda tonight. We're going to start with a consent agenda, which includes a time extension request and the approval for the minutes from last meeting. Can I get a motion for those?
I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Maureen and a second from Adrienne. Let's go ahead and take the vote. Mike?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Hey, Maureen?
Yes.
Andreas?
I'll vote yes.
Thank you. John?
Yes.
Brenda? Brenda?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Amy?
Yes.
And Adrienne?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Moving on to the public hearings portion of our agenda. Our first item up is an ADU conditional use at approximately 2900 South and 900 East. The planner tonight is Chrissy Gilmore, and this is going to be case number PLN PCM 2021-00930.
Hi, good evening. Michaela, if I could get the share option. There we go. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. So this petition for conditional use is for an ADU over a detached two-car garage located approximately 2900 South and 900 East. The subject parcel is zoned R1 7000 single-family residential, and staff is recommending that the commission approve the request with conditions. So the ADU will be located in the rear of the rear yard of the single-family home, above a new detached two-car garage. The ADU will be 650 square feet, and the garage is proposed at 720 square feet. The ADU will be 12 feet from the side, the north side property line, and 10 feet from the rear property line. One parking stall is provided for the ADU adjacent to the structure in the driveway, though the property is located within a 4th mile of a fixed transit stop. A bus stop is located directly in front of the house and would not require additional parking. The building is proposed with a height of 20 feet, where the main house is also 20 feet. So accessory dwelling units can be above the 17 foot maximum if they are, but they can't go up, as long as they're the same height as the main house. They cannot go above 24 feet though. So that is why this one is allowed to go up to 20 feet, because the main residence is also 20 feet. And then here is an elevation. This bottom corner, this is the front of the structure. And then this west elevation is the rear. And please note that windows within 10 feet of a property line are required to be obscured or glazed. And then you can see the other elevations as well. And then here's the proposed location. So this top photo is the primary dwelling on site. And then you can see the driveway, which will be replaced with concrete leading to the rear yard, and then the approximate location of where the ADU will be placed. So as far as public comments, staff received several public comments in opposition to the proposed ADU. They were primarily concerned with the height, just general neighborhood compatibility, and then concern regarding the ADU being used as a short-term rental. So staff has added one suggested condition, which was also at the request of the Sugar House Community Council, that makes it clear that neither the main home nor the ADU can be used as a short-term rental. And then, as mentioned earlier, planning staff recommends that the commission approve the conditional use request with the one condition. The proposal meets all applicable standards in the staff report. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant is also on the line.
Okay, Andrea, I saw you raise your hand. Any question for
Thanks so much for your work on this. I am confused because we already have a bylaw, as I understand it, that prohibits short-term rentals of any kind in Salt Lake City. So it seems like this condition is redundant, and I don't know why we would add it.
Yeah, and you are correct on that. We do, the ordinance already states that they can't have a short-term rental. This is really the request of the community council to make that extremely clear that it cannot be used as a short-term rental. And it's up to the commission if you want to include that or not. But yeah, it is a given that they can't have a short-term rental.
It just seems like we're adding paperwork here where we don't need paperwork. There's already a prohibition on it. Enforcement is a different question, but this particular recommendation doesn't seem to address the enforcement potential problem. And I think the applicant, if they're on the line, already understands that that is Salt Lake City bylaws existing.
Noted.
And you guys can remove that, and we can just make sure to reflect that in a findings and order.
Yeah, when we do a motion, that is an option.
Yes.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, it looks like we have the presenter, John Lane. Is he here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, John, do you need permission to share your screen or anything, or are you going to just talk?
I feel like the project's been presented pretty well, unless there are questions or issues.
Okay.
I don't necessarily feel
we
like we
can
need to,
conclude that. Yeah, Commissioner,
belabor
any
the point.
questions for the applicant? All right, then. John, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. So if you'll just hang tight, if there are any questions that come up during that, you'll have the opportunity to respond to them after I close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we'll open the public hearing for this topic, and it looks like I see at least one hand. If you want to speak, please go ahead and click that hand that looks like this in the lower right-hand corner. Is Judy? Yes, she is.
Judy
Oh,
did indicate that she wanted to speak, Michaela.
Yep, gotcha right here. Judy, I'm unmuting you.
We'll
Thank
start
you.
with Judy.
Wonderful.
I'll answer Andrea's question. We're finding that people turn these ADUs into Airbnb and just don't tell anybody. And if they don't get reported, then enforcement doesn't know about it. And even enforcement has a very difficult time really enforcing these. So it's just an extra notice to the person because I'm sure they don't spend their time reading the city code. So this is in the R1 7,000 district, and the ADU will measure 650 square feet and constructed over a new garage in the rear yard. We did our usual process of distributing flyers around the neighborhood and reviewed this at the October 11th Land Use Committee. We have comments from neighbors attached and others were in attendance to ask questions. It was confusing because the request was for a 650 square foot ADU above a garage to be constructed. Because of the size of the garage footprint, there were 2 storage spaces placed in the garage. Although one had the water heater and toilet and sink, which seemed strange since there's a bath in the ADU above. And the ADU above has a storage unit for the garage, an attempt to keep the ADU at the allowable 650 square feet. So we were confused. There would be 2 parking spaces for the owners in the garage, and the ADU occupant would be allowed to park on the property. Some people had questioned the owners, and he said this would not be an Airbnb, but at the meeting he was a bit vague, saying his grown children might not need a place to live, or might need a place to live, and they might have friends or family coming to visit. It was made clear to him that an Airbnb was not allowed, and if it was used for such could be enforced. We'd like that in the letter. Just because it's in our code doesn't mean people know how to read it. We feel like if the city's given them written notice like this, they lose their excuse if they break the rules. There was also conversation about lighting. We've had complaints from previous ADUs that the second story, sorry, thanks.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'll take care of time, and Judy's with the community council, so she gets 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There was a conversation about lighting. We've had ADUs in the past that put lots of lights on the second floor and they shine into the neighbors' yards, and that bothers the neighbors. So we'd ask that lights be, for the most part, on the first level to shine on the walkways and not from the soffits at the top. So at the time we reviewed, they still had questions about height and the 650 feet and 720 feet. We'd like those questions clearly answered. If it meets all the criteria for an ADU, it should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
All right. Sorry to cut you off there, Judy. Okay. Terry, I'm unmuting you, Terry. Did you want me to do the timing, Amy, or you're doing the timing?
I can do it.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Michaela, though. Terry, if you'll just state your name for the record, and then you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay, actually, my name is Terry Giles Fussell, and there's actually 2 of us because Marcia doesn't have a computer, and she was approved.
Okay, well, we'll start with you, Terry, and then once you're done, then we can move on to the second one. How's that?
Perfectly. So I am adamantly opposed to this ADU structure. The property owner previously stated to me that he wanted to build just a garage, and he didn't say anything about an ADU. And who knows, again, he may want to do that Airbnb. I would also request to discuss solutions to mitigate the impact should this be approved. When my father passed away 2 years ago, at that time I chose to move back into my childhood home where I grew up because it was the place I could feel safe. I miss the safety and privacy, and I wanted this quiet, friendly neighborhood. I have plans to enjoy my golden years here with my grandchildren and have the same experience and the great memories in this house. I want my grandchildren to experience the same quiet, private environment as I did in my childhood home. I worry that this decision to build the structure will intrude on my privacy and not only on my backyard, but now my office space and my living space. Who knows who will be coming and going at what time of day and night with lights. I request that this not pass so our neighborhood will retain its small town feeling.
Oh, Amy, you're muted, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. If the next person will just state your name for the record, and then I'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay, this is Marcia Korak. I want to thank the Planning Commission for this opportunity. I'm adamantly opposed to this proposed structure. Please refer to my comments of 10/15/21 and 1/19 of this year. I believe this presentation failed to provide the positive benefits directly to me and my neighbors. It appears this proposal only benefits the property owner of this ADU financially and otherwise. Please note, to the best of my knowledge, the property owner has not contacted me or my neighbors with the opportunity to discuss offsets. I would ask the commission to table this decision so these discussions can occur in hopes of a resolution. If not, at least consider the alternative solution to mitigate the impact on the neighboring properties. The structure is 10 feet from my property line. I know it only needs to be 8 feet. I'm requesting 12 feet from my property line. No windows on the west side of the structure. Mature trees planted along the side of the structure, on all sides of the structure. Replace a 6-foot vinyl fence with an 8-foot vinyl fence or equal or greater value. Not a 2-story, a single-story structure with a garage off to the side. This is very emotional for me. How would you feel if you were me and you lived here for 65 years and all of a sudden you're having a 2-story towering structure built that will invade my privacy, my quiet enjoyment of my property, and you have no control over it? I never thought that everything that my parents and I have worked for would come down to 2 minutes. I'm the property owner to the west of this structure.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other attendees who wish to speak on this item? If so, please hit that lower hand.
I don't see any other hands up.
Okay.
I don't see any comments that came in. Kelsey, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, with that, I will close the public comment period. I will just kind of start this with a statement that I understand the feelings of that were expressed, and I'd like okay, I didn't write down names. I'm sorry, but I'd like you to know that as a planning commission, we are unable to require any applicant to do something more than the code. So you requested an additional setback. I can't require that. An 8-foot fence is also not allowed in the city, but we can certainly talk about lighting and planting of trees in that setback. So I, at this point, would give it back to the applicant. John, are you still on? John Blaine?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
I wanted to give you the opportunity to reply to any of those. It's
Amy,
yeah.
do you need to close the public hearing?
I did.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. But thank you. Mr. Lane, I'll give you the opportunity to respond to any of those comments, or if you're fine, you don't have to.
Can you give me just a second to talk with the property owner?
Sure. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff while the applicant confers with the property owner?
I have more of a comment. I'm extremely sympathetic to the neighbors' concerns that this be an Airbnb. My concern is if we modify the conditional use approval to have a particular condition about Airbnb in this one, and then we don't do it for other conditional use permits, that we send a very mixed message as to how serious we are about not having an Airbnb, that sometimes we're serious if it's in the Sugar House district, but you know, it's over in the Central 9th, we're not that serious about it. Do you see what I'm saying? Is I think that there's a consistency issue with the law that we might be sending a message that I just want the commissioners to think about.
Okay.
Thank you for that feedback. If you don't mind me, Amy, just jumping in on that one. I think we can find another place in the staff report to respond to that so that the community councils or neighbors know that, the developer applicant knows that. It can be like in next steps, or we can address it somewhere else so it's not tied to the condition. But I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate that. We'll talk to staff about that. Thank you.
Mr. Lane?
Yeah, so I spoke with the homeowner for just a couple minutes, and they are sensitive to the fact that this is in the rear yard and is a tall structure. They are open to planting some trees to help screen visually the structure from the neighbors and that kind of thing. And so I think as long as we're meeting those requirements from the code and they're doing their best to help screen that, I feel like it's a noble attempt to to be good neighbors. So
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions, or are you ready for a discussion on this project and a motion?
Michaela, were there any other questions that are unanswered that were raised in the Sugar House Community Council letter just regarding the size?
Yeah, I feel like the size issue has not been answered particularly.
Yeah, and I can answer
Like
that.
the footprint of this building is larger than it can be.
Yeah, so the footprint.
For Chrissy, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No problem.
Okay.
I'm sorry for talking over you. Yeah, so the footprint of the garage is 720 square feet, but then there's an open loft area that goes up. So the ADU itself is only 650. So they can't access that part from the ADU. So it does meet the standards.
I feel like it may meet technically the standard, but it doesn't meet the letter. I mean, it doesn't meet the intent of the law that these things not be as big or have a certain limitation in size. I don't think the size has to do with the floor plan of the unit itself, but has to do with the impact on the neighborhood. And from that perspective, this one just definitely is cheating, so to speak. I mean, if we had this happen all the time, people would be building, 2-story storage units above their yards, and so this is I think this kind of thing should be roundly discouraged.
Okay. Any other questions or discussions, commissioners? Okay. I would be looking for a motion then, if there's no other discussion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Andrea.
Okay. Based on the findings listed in the staff report, the information presented, and input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use request, PLN PCM 2021-00930, full stop.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Andrea and a second from Maureen. Let's go ahead and take a vote. Amy?
I'll vote yes.
Okay, John?
Yes.
Andreas?
I'll vote yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Brenda?
I'm going to vote yes, but I do want to say that I think that this is not a habit we want to get into of adding additional space that's just storage in an ADU, because it really increases the size of the building, which I think is the intent of the law.
Okay. Andrea?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. You are good to move forward, Mr. Lane. Okay, we're going to move on to our second public hearing, which is an ADU conditional use at approximately 2346 South Park Street. This is case number PLN PCM 2021-01122. And the planner tonight is Caitlin.
Good morning, members of the commission, and thank you, Madam
Well, it's
Chair.
not morning, but I wish
Oh, it's been a week. Good evening, members of the commission, and thank you, Madam Chair. We do have an ADU request at 2346 South Park Street. This is in the Sugar House neighborhood. We have a vicinity map on the screen on the left. As you can see, the proposed ADU would be located in a detached structure in the northwest corner of the property, which is the rear yard. It does back up against a public alley. And just off the screen to the south is the I-80 right-of-way, just to orient everybody. And then we've got a photograph of the primary dwelling on the bottom right there, just to give you a sense of the scale of the buildings that are already on site. So as I mentioned, it is a request for a new detached ADU. This ADU will be 648 square feet in size and will have a pitched roof and will be 17 feet in height. It is located 4 feet from both the side and the rear property lines and covers approximately 35.5% of the lot when 45% lot coverage is permitted in this zone. As you see on your site plan in the staff report packets, the applicant has also proposed a new detached garage in the rear yard just to the south of the proposed ADU building. Additionally, there is parking available on the public street on Park Street. And then we have a site plan on this slide here. As you can see, the ADU and the new garage will be accessible from the city alleyway. And as you can see, the applicant is also looking to install a new driveway along the northern side of the property there, also to provide access. The overall design of the ADU is very similar in shape and scale to the existing home. As you can see, it has a pitched roof and windows of similar size and shape. And it does have horizontal lap siding. For the public engagement portion of this request, we did mail out a notice to all of the homeowners and occupants within 300 feet of the project site. And we have received a handful of comments in support of this request. The applicant and staff also met with the Sugar House Community Council on December 13th. And the Sugar House Community Council has also provided a letter of support for this request, which is in your staff report packet. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you have for me, or we also have our homeowner, Steve Floor, on the line if you have questions for him.
Okay, at this point, are there any questions for staff from commissioners? Okay, so Mr. Floor, are you able to speak? Michaela, I don't think he's been moved over. Is he here?
Steve Floor? I think he popped off. I just moved him
He's on
over.
the attendee list.
Oh, he must have popped out, maybe. Steve.
There you go. You can unmute yourself at this point, Mr. Floor. Maybe you can unmute him, Michaela. There we go.
Oh, there. Oh,
There we go.
hi. Sorry.
Mr. Floor, did you have anything you wanted to add to that for us tonight?
Well, I'm fumbling with the WebEx program here. I'm sorry to say.
We all are. Don't worry.
Okay. I don't know what I could add. Caitlin, I submitted to you a more updated site plan, But that was for purposes of utility lines, and I don't know if that needs to be looked at or discussed now, but it's sort of a better drawing, more up to date, less superfluous information and more significant, important information, but I don't know if that needs to be discussed in this meeting or not.
I'm happy to pull that up if you'd like to display it, Steve.
Sure, I'm proud of it. Paid my architect a lot for that drawing. Also, one thing, the architect was just missed the fact that to match the existing house, the ADU and the proposed garage as well will be stuccoed in the same way that our existing house is. It's not going to be lap siding as he showed in the drawing.
All right,
Okay.
here's that updated drawing.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
That's our new driveway.
I was gonna say, well, how do I get one of those?
You're transforming the place.
Yes, we are. That's it. That's it. Once again, it's essentially the same, and I think the stuff that's most relevant to the Planning Commission was also on the previous drawing, but here's the updated one showing, once again, utility lines, but I don't think that's something that you guys want to discuss here and now, but if we want to, we can.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Flora. At this point, I'll ask if commissioners have any questions of you. Okay, doesn't look like any, so I'll just have you hang tight. I'll open the public comment period, and if anything comes up during that, I'll give you the chance to respond to it once I close that. So,
Okay.
all right, we'll open the public comment period for this item. If you wish to speak, please select the hand button at the bottom.
I'm going to start with Miss Judy Short.
Yeah, start with Judy.
Hi, Judy Short, Sugar House Community Council. We did this in the usual way. We sent flyers around the neighborhood and put it in the newsletter. And we had a few neighbors at the meeting, and other comments came in by email. This is the kind of project we like to see because Mr. Floor owns 5 homes in the neighborhood, and he's fixed them all up. He maintains them, and they're all for rent except the one he lives in, and the tenants stay forever because he's a good landlord. So we need more people like him in Sugar House, actually in the city. And he's told us he has no plans to make it an Airbnb, but it might be a place for his children to stay. He's trying to lure them into coming to Salt Lake to live. And several neighbors spoke to how pleased they are with Mr. Floor as a member of the neighborhood. This the proposed ADU meets all the standards required in the ordinance, and we'd like you to approve it.
Thank you, Judy. Okay.
Oh, Ty Rosser. I'm unmuting you, Ty.
If you would just state your name for the record, and then you have 2 minutes, Mr. Rosser.
Oh, okay. Well, hello. Ty Rosser here. Steve, I think we met once. I only know you as Doc, but
Yeah, that's me.
yeah. Hey, I guess my only questions or concerns is during the construction process of the garage and this ADU. Our back alley, it's a dead end, and the only accessible side, at least for me, and well, I guess everybody on the north side of the alley, yeah, that's my concern, is the accessibility of getting through there while everything's under construction.
Okay, once we close the public comment period, I'll have the applicant respond to that. Okay, Michaela, the next
Amy
person.
Buchanan. Amy?
Okay.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to thank the Planning Commission for having this meeting about the plans for Mr. Floor and his ADU. We are neighbors to the south of Mr. Floor, and we could not be more happier to have him as a neighbor. Every time, like we were here during the construction process of his home that he's rebuilt, and just to kind of give a preface, we had a drug home next to us for 15 of the years that we've been, and we've been here in Sugar House in this home for 17 years. And to actually have a neighbor that cares about us, that cares about his community, cares about his neighbors, and wants to help those to have affordable housing. I think the mayor yesterday had indicated that neighbors are losing their homes and being forced out of the city and even on the streets. And Doc has provided the housing available for these people. And the ADU is a great step in being creative, in finding a way to be able to create more housing, to create affordable housing. And I just want to, I could not say enough good things about the Floor family and how inspirational they've helped us as well, and just creating a neighborhood, a true neighborhood. We go out and we just truly have a good time with each other and are really grateful for this idea that he has to be able to enhance in his property.
Thank you, Amy. Will you just state your name for the record so you do it?
Sure. Amy Buchanan.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else, Michaela?
I do not see any other hands up. Let me check.
No emails have been provided either.
Okay, once you're done speaking, if you would click that hand again to lower it, then we can better keep track of future public comments. Thank you both for commenting. I will close the public comment period, bring this back to the applicant. Would you like to take a moment to address the construction and alley access question?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me? I just want to make sure.
Yes, we can.
Still on. All right. So Ty, I'm not sure where is it that you live? Is Ty?
Oh, he's already muted. He can't respond back. Sorry.
Okay, because he said north side of the alley, and I think he probably meant to say west side, but I'm not sure which house is his because the alley runs north and south.
Mm-hmm.
Any rate, I'm not sure which house is Ty's, but the same thing would apply wherever his house is in relation to this alley. During the construction, yeah, it's tough, as with all construction projects. I work in the vicinity of Third West, and it's been pretty hellacious, and a lot of people have dealt with construction projects and road closures and that sort of thing. I think that the amount of heavy construction that needs to be done on such a small project will be minimal. The worst of it is going to be the excavation of the ADU itself, because we have to excavate to construct the footings and foundations for that, and that's going to require a large excavator. That excavation should take only a couple of days, and the contractors that I'm going to use on that are the same contractors that I've used for years, including the ones that were on this construction project for this house that we're sitting here right now, where we're directly north of Amy Buchanan's house. I would not hire those guys back again if they weren't workable in every way. And one of them is to abide by any request to allow right-of-ways through that alleyway as they're working. So what I can say is that we'll do the best we can. I've done it before. I've had a lot of cement mixers and big trucks here in the past. And Ty, all I can do is promise you that I'll do the best we possibly can in that regard. It isn't going to be pretty. These construction projects are not pretty while they're happening, but that's all I can tell you is, yeah, we'll do the best. We're not going to keep you from using the alley. The alleyway is a public thoroughfare, and after the construction of the project, it will certainly continue to be that, and we plan to use it for access to our garage and the ADU as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Floor. All right, commissioners, any discussion or comments at this time? or if someone is ready to make a motion.
I'll make a motion, Amy.
Okay, go ahead, Adrian.
Based on the analysis and findings listed in the staff report, information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use request to establish a detached accessory dwelling unit located at approximately 2346 South Park Street, case number PLN PCM 2021-01122.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion from Adrian and a second from Mike. Go ahead and take a vote. Andra?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Andreas?
I will vote yes.
Okay. Adrian?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Good luck, Mr. Floor, on your construction, and happy times for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Construction is always fun, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
All right, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the Chicago Street Townhomes at approximately 928 and 938 West South Temple, 18, 28, 30, and 36 North Chicago Street. This is case number PLN PCM 2021-00824 for the plan development, PLN PCM 2021-00825 for the design review, and case number PLN SUB 2021-00826 for the preliminary subdivision. And the planner tonight for this is going to be Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Can you all see that? Let me know if you're having any issues with that.
Yes, I can see it.
Great. So this is a plan development, design review, and preliminary subdivision for the Chicago Street Townhomes located at the northeast corner of the intersection of West South Temple and Chicago Streets. The applicant is requesting the plan development, design review, and preliminary subdivision approvals. You can see the location of the property on the right. It is located on the north side of South Temple and then to the east of Madsen Park. And then 900 West is to the right in the aerial view. To give you a brief overview of the project, the properties are located in the TSA UNT zoning district. The North Temple master plan is applicable to this area. The subject property includes 6 existing parcels that have a total area of over 36,000 square feet. The proposal is for 4 buildings with a total of 30 townhouse units. The proposal is for 7 to 9 units in each building. Each townhouse is to be located on its own lot. The exterior materials are primarily brick veneer, fiber cement siding, glass, and stucco. Each unit has an attached garage, and 16 of the units have single-car garages, and 14 units have tandem 2-car garages. The photos on this slide show the existing structures on the property. There's a small warehouse building along with several residences. And then for context, the zoning map on the right shows the property's TSA UNT zoning and the zoning of the adjacent properties, which is also TSA UNT, with the exception of the properties to the east, which are in the core area of the urban neighborhood zoning district. And then the adjacent properties include Madsen Park, residential dwellings primarily to the north and to the west, and then other commercial or related uses, particularly south of the railroad tracks and to the east. There are a number of applicable standards, including the standards for the TSA zoning districts, the design standards in 21A37, and then also the standards for the 3 review processes, the plan development, design review, and preliminary subdivision. And detailed analyses of these are in the attachments to the staff report. The applicant has requested several modifications from the standards through the plan development and design review processes. The plan development request is for lots without frontage. 14 of the 30 lots do not have frontage on a public street as required. Additionally, rather than complete a condo plat for the property, The proposal is for additional individual townhome lots, which may allow for additional financing options, including FHA loans, and staff recommends approval of this request. This is a rendering facing northeast at the intersection of West South Temple and Chicago Streets, and it shows two of the design review requests. I'll talk a little bit more about these. But one is for the stucco architectural element that is shown in the dark brown, and then the other is for the entries on Chicago Street that do not recess or have canopies of the size required by the zoning district. And just to go into a little more detail on the design review request, it's for modifications to design standards in the base TSA UMT zoning district and also the standards in 21A37. Additionally, the project did not receive enough points for administrative approval and is required to go through the design review process. So the first design review request is for the proposed stucco that is shown in the dark brown on the rendering and is also visible on these elevations. The proposed stucco exceeds what is permitted for stucco or EFIS in the zoning district. And the intent behind this regulation was to avoid larger areas and walls that are covered with stucco or EFIS. And as proposed, the stucco is an architectural element rather than the flat blank wall that can be created with stucco or EFIS. And then the second request relates to the building entrances. The design standards require that entrances have canopies, awnings, or recesses that are at least 5 feet. And as proposed, the canopy is 2 feet and the recess is 4 feet 3 inches, which is less than the required 5 feet. However, it's staff's opinion that they meet the intent of the standard by breaking up the facade and do this in the 2 ways with a combination of the recessed entry and the 2-foot canopy. And staff supports both of these requests. And as identified in the key considerations, the proposal is consistent with the city's adopted planning documents. The proposed townhomes meet the characteristics identified for development in this area and increase the variety of housing options. They're also located close to the sidewalk and have parking located behind and interior to the buildings. And additionally, the townhome lots are likely to provide homeownership opportunities. And as for staff's recommendation, staff sent notice of the proposal to the community council and did not receive a response. Staff did receive one phone call from a member of the public which had questions and comments, and these are noted in the staff report. There have also been 3 email comments submitted after the staff report was posted, and these have been added to the Dropbox. And for the recommendation itself, the staff recommends approval of the proposal with the conditions included in the staff report and identified on the slide. Additionally, the applicant is here and has a presentation and is available to answer any questions. Are there questions for staff at this point?
Commissioners? Okay, I don't hear any, and so we have, looks like just Jared Hall is up for presenting. Are you here, Mr. Hall?
Yes, I am.
Okay, do you need presenter privileges?
Yes, if I can.
Okay.
Coming at you.
Wait.
Wonderful.
Okay, as you've been here before, Mr. Hall, I think you remember you have 10 minutes. So
okay, so I'll be fairly quick since Sarah I think covered most of us. So I'm Jared Hall. I'm the architect on this project, the Chicago Townhomes project. This is our kind of context map showing where our site is located at the corner of Chicago Street and South Temple and across the street from Madsen Park. But it's also sort of noting so many of the other projects that are coming to this area, which are primarily apartment buildings because the zoning allows for apartments. So we're kind of excited to be part of a townhouse project to be providing a little bit different housing option here. Some images of the context. That's one of the buildings that is in the area under construction. These are the more commercial buildings next to us and across the railroads to the south. We are really close to the State Fair Park, which is always a big draw for the neighborhood. And then mostly currently on Chicago Street is small single family houses. So this is kind of a diagram showing what will look like in the middle, and then the stuff to the south is kind of much more industrial looking. stuff to the north, smaller houses. We are a 3-story townhouse that's coming up to 30 feet tall, and 50 feet is allowed in the zone. So we are building under the allowed zoning height, but feel it's right as the neighborhood is still continuing to transition. Here's our site plan. We have vehicle access on the south and the north, with the garages accessed off that private drive. As Sarah mentioned, we have 44 parking stalls for our 30 units. It'd be 60 units max. Our overall density is 36.1 units per acre, and the North Temple Master Plan is calling out for around 35 units per acre in this area. So we're kind of hitting it right where we feel it should be. Currently, strangely, along Chicago Street, there is only one street tree in the park strip. And our intent is to provide a nice landscape with lots of street trees along that park strip, going to help shade our units from that really harsh west sun. And then, so the consideration one is the lots without frontage. And as Sarah mentioned, doing townhomes allows a lot more financing options for end buyers, so that we feel this creates more opportunity for home ownership than if this was an apartment or condominium, which could just be built as right. So as you guys have all heard many times, like townhomes it's relatively expensive to get to the full TSA points using townhomes. So I'm going to go over a couple of the things we've tried to do to make sure we're meeting the intent of those TSA points, even though we don't quite achieve the full 125 points. So the first one is the corner entry piece, which we've tried to create a really prominent corner entry, but when going over things with Sarah, she said in order for it to qualify, there'd have to be an entrance from both streets, which didn't make sense for us in a residential unit. The next one is eyes on the street. So each one of our units has the front door facing Chicago Street and balconies looking onto Chicago Street. Recently, as you are probably aware, like Madsen Park has been closed because of some criminal issues. And so we feel like getting people there and going from 4 homes that kind of have ownership and are looking out onto Chicago Street to now there would be 14 front doors looking onto Chicago Street, kind of helping get eyes on there, help reduce the problems as the park will be reopened soon. Another one is wrapping parking in high quality materials. So private garages don't qualify for that point, but we are wrapping all of our base level, even the non-street facing facades, in brick to kind of help give a more durable surface at that base so it stays looking great for a long time. The consideration 3 was the master plan and the master plan calls for an increased density in this neighborhood. And we are trying to provide a project that is sort of gently increasing that density, going from what was single family house to kind of a missing middle density, as it's also continuing to get quite a few larger apartments coming in. So that's my presentation, and I would welcome any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? So I have one quick one on the Chicago Street frontages. I will say that the intent of that ordinance and that code for me isn't so much, I mean, breaking up the facade is one part of it, but it's really about that engagement to the street and making it feel inviting. And I don't know if you have a different view. This one's kind of shaded. I don't necessarily feel like those entrances on Chicago are meeting that intent. Yeah. And I'm curious, what other ideas would you have to try to make those feel more inviting and connected to the streetscape and the pedestrian level?
So one of the things that's unique about this project versus most of the projects we work on is the property line is actually quite a ways behind the sidewalk versus normally the property line is right at the sidewalk. And so we can't, this little grassy area, we can't necessarily fence off these, but I would imagine as the project gets full of people, they'll sort of, each one will be taking that over as part of their front yard space, and it will become a much more engaging facade as they're like,
So
you know,
for
bringing.
design wise, what about lighting out here to indicate like, hey, this is an inviting pedestrian front door experience? What about, you know, doing some things to soften it and making the entrance itself feel more engaging instead of this like black hole that's stuck back there?
Okay, so yeah, we would put lights in that little soffit ceiling you see poking out. We felt like kind of doing both the recess and the out from the building helped identify each of those as an entrance well to kind of help make that engaging. But we would definitely be planning to put lights under here so that especially at night, that those doorways stay very bright.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, Jared, thanks so much for this. It looks like an exciting proposal, and I appreciate all the trees, particularly in light of our considering an urban forestry proposal. And we're all very concerned about our air quality, obviously, and that would help. I am a little bit confused by all the use of green grass, and I'm wondering, consistent with what Amy is suggesting, whether you could put in some really interesting desert landscaping and not just stones, but some really interesting plants that might help with the pedestrian engagement as well. I know I love walking by really nicely landscaped yards. Would that be a possibility?
Yeah, so our landscape architect can definitely do some, I mean, we kind of show grass for our renderings because it's sometimes hard to get the landscape just right for renderings. But yes, we'd be doing something other than just all grass there. There would be a lot more water conscious.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hall, if you want to hang tight, I'm going to open the public comment period. And we'll see if we have anybody in attendance wishes to speak on this item. If you would click the hand in the lower right hand portion of your screen. I don't see any hands clicked.
I don't either.
Kelsey, any?
I see some hands popping up here.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's stop it. Let's start at the top. Cyan Larson.
And if you would just state your name for the record, and then you have 2 minutes.
Oops, I think we're both. There you go. Cyan Larson. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correctly, so I apologize. Yes. Oh, I'm gonna unmute you again.
Oh,
I unmuted you.
okay.
There we go.
My name is Cyan Larson. I'm someone that is talking out of concern for the first part about like the idea of this neighborhood as transitioning, and like it sounds like for redevelopment, that's like a concern for me, as there's a lot of patterns and documentation of the patterns of these like luxury apartments that cause the neighbors and the people that already live around these places up for redevelopment to get pushed out, and they have to forcibly move basically, especially when they're low income, which is basically the case here. So I'm basically opposing these townhomes to be constructed in this space in the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Freddie Davis, I'm unmuting you.
You just state your name for the record, and we'll give you 2 minutes.
All right, thanks. My name's Freddie. I just want to say that my understanding is that there's currently a family living on this project site, and this redevelopment is going to displace that family and replace them with people who can afford to live in these luxury, unaffordable housing units. I think it's kind of ridiculous that this would be done at the same time that the city's actually studying the very displacement that would happen here. I guess like cycling the neighborhood here. And I want to say too, in response to the presentation that Jared Hall gave, I think like obviously more housing is needed to face the housing crisis that's going on. And I think this kind of like missing middle housing is even a good way to do that. It's not like massive, ugly apartment blocks. But if we're making this housing while we're also displacing current residents and then making housing that's so unaffordable that the people who already live in these neighborhoods can't stay there, it doesn't really seem like the way forward, and it's probably only going to make the affordability crisis even worse. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Juan Garcia, I'm unmuting you, Juan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
sir.
All right, so hi everyone. My name is Juan Garcia, and I just want to echo a lot of the concerns that were like previously stated about this development. I don't know. I just think it's crazy. Like Jared Hall has a history of demolishing affordable homes for the community, and like in this specific instance, he's demolishing affordable homes and displacing a family that already lives there for more luxury apartments. And I just think it's really frustrating, because I feel like the Latino community in Rose Park is always being like pushed aside just for like more white hipsters, to change the entire color of the neighborhood. And yeah, the craziest part to me is still like there's a family living there, and it's even more crazy that it's a family of color, and like there's a history, of families of color being like pushed aside. And I think if the planning commission, approves this, I think they're just like continuing that history, and it really shows like their complicity and like racism and stuff. That family has been living in Rose Park for 15 years. They would be forced to move to a new area with rising prices everywhere. Like, I don't know. I think you can't really put a price on like forcing a family to leave their home in search of a new one. And also, the presentation itself, I think it's crazy too. Like, everyone's talking about making the development look inviting and environmentally friendly, but like at what cost, Yeah,
Okay.
it's this I just want to like say again, like this is an act of violence and racism towards the community in Rose Park. And someone also said there's a gentrification study happening right now. So like we should definitely wait until that's completed before we move forward with more acts of gentrification. So I just want to urge everyone to oppose the Chicago townhomes and stay out of our neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Styler. That's time.
Thank you. All right. Mike Stetner. Mike, I'm unmuting you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
if you would state your name for the record and then go ahead, you'd have 2 minutes.
Yes, my name is Mike Stetner. I'm actually the property owner. We have retained Jared Hall and his firm as our architect, and we've been very happy with his services and quite honestly, all the interaction that we've had with the city of Salt Lake City. I do want to address a couple of the comments with respect to the displacement of existing residents in the community.
So, Mr. Stetner, I'm going to interject and stop you here because I'd like you to probably join Jared after the public comment period so you can address the items that come up instead of just a 2-minute comment.
Sure.
So let's stop you, and then Michaela, if you can move him to the panelist view. After the public comments closed, I'll have Mr. Hall and Mr. Stetner respond to anything. That way, if some other things come up after he would have made his comment, he can still respond.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Kiru John Tua. Sorry, I probably butchered your name.
Really did.
I've
If you would
unmuted
state
you.
your name, yeah, if you would state your name correctly for us for the record, and then you'd have 2 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, hello. My name is Kiru Cantua. First of all, hearing Jared Hall talk about this project and anybody who is in support of it, Um, divulging on the space and the proximity to community sites like Fair Park is one of the tactics in like how to promote redevelopment, and especially showing these commercial spaces that look like they're not in use, when in actuality there's a colorful community happening around that area. There are family mom and pop shops, there are restaurants, there's a park that's now been closed to the community for now. There are supermarkets, there are nail salons. There is a community of people here that are wanting to stay here because this is their home, as well as the family and the families that have been displaced. They are wanting to stay here. And from what I have seen from the presentation and from the plans, I have not seen any prices or any indication of making this affordable. If the Planning Commission is serious about the gentrification study happening right now, they will not approve of this project or any projects moving forward until the gentrification study is over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cantua.
Simon Chavez, I'm unmuting you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Simon Chavez. I'm a proud member of the community in Rose Park. I want to make this very clear that this development by Jared Hall is an obvious act of racism against the Latino community in Rose Park. We've seen that past developments, especially ones from Jared Hall, have been displacing already low-income families, especially families of color. Further studies have already are already coming out, showing that Latinos are in the city are the ones who are being most affected by the current actions of gentrification. That they're being pushed out due to rising rent prices. I've also seen that a developer has claimed on their website that these townhomes are going to be affordable. Well, the question really is for who? It's not going to be for the community. It's just going to be for outsiders who come into the community and destroy the culture.
What do you mean?
Well,
Don't say anything about that. You're not.
he just made a statement that said we said on our website that they're affordable.
Hey, please, if you're not Mr. Chavez, please mute yourself so he can have his time. Mr. Chavez, if you want to continue your comment, please do.
Okay. Spur seems like this development is not for the Rose Park community at all. If the Planning Commission approves this development, it will show that the city does not care for the Latino community and is willing to stand by racist developers. And finally, seeing that these homes actually have families still living in them, or extremely valuable members of the community, this is something that has to stop. This development has to stop until further studies are done on gentrification and until everything else is figured out, because this is just unacceptable.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chavez. I appreciate your time. I don't see any additional hands raised. If you want to speak, please go ahead and click that hand. Kelsey, have there been any email comments that you've received?
Not at this time.
Okay. With that, I will close the public comment period. And if you have spoken, if you'd please hit that hand again, and it lowers it and it helps us manage those comment times better. I just want to take a brief second to thank all of those people that spoke up tonight. We do really appreciate your participation, and we want you to know that we do listen to them. We read the comments that we get. I think you have a very sympathetic panel of commissioners on this, but legally the role of the Planning Commission is not one where we can evaluate a project against any issue that may come up. There are legal standards that we are required to evaluate projects against, and affordability is not one of those. It's not the purview of the Planning Commission. So I don't want you to feel that no one is listening to you or that no one cares, but we have a fairly focused legal box of what we operate in. And so the idea that we would wait for a study, or that we could wait for a study to be complete, is also not part of our purview. The City Council is definitely the realm that makes decisions and directs code and ordinances for the city, and then the staff and the planning commission have to follow those. But I do want you to know that we are listening and we do hear you, and we are also sharing many of those same sentiments that you expressed tonight. With that, I will give Mr. Hall and Mr. Stetner the opportunity to address a couple of the questions that have come up in at this time, and then we'll take it to the commission for a discussion.
Amy, I'm sorry, did you close the public hearing?
I don't remember. I will officially close
I'm
the
not sure if you
public
did,
hearing.
sorry.
No, thank you. I don't remember if I did. So
Let's
I
just do it again. Okay,
officially
thank you.
close the public comment period at this time, if I didn't already do so. All right, Mr. Hall and Mr. Stetner.
I don't see if Mr. Stetner is still a panelist. He would probably be.
He is, and he's
Okay.
unmuted.
Yeah, I just unmuted Jared. I think what I'll limit my comments to this is that this is our first project in Salt Lake City and has been nothing but from a developer standpoint, extremely positive in the feedback that we get from all of the various departments. And as part of an education with the process with Jared, it's a breath of fresh air in terms of bringing a project forward. Having this kind of input throughout the process has really been very much appreciated. So I just wanted to
Okay.
thank Jared and acknowledge the staff's effort to get us to this point.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Okay then. Jared or Mr. Hall, did you want to say any last thing?
No.
Okay. Okay, commissioners, with that, if you have any additional questions for the applicant or staff at this time, or a discussion.
Madam Chair, this is Amy Burrows, if I can say something.
Go ahead.
I feel, yeah, I was listening to the public comments and I believe you, and I think that what you're saying is true. But there's one of the things that's interesting when you look at the staff report. There's an outcome that tells us if we vote for this proposal, what will happen, and if we vote against this proposal, what will happen. And one of the things in this specific case, even if we vote, every single one of us voted no on it, they could still build this exact same building we're talking about. They just couldn't, it wouldn't be subdivided as townhomes. So the financing that's available to people that are moving in would be different. That's kind of like, that's my understanding of what the only difference would be if we say no. So we don't have a way to say don't build this building, or the people who are already living there are more important than this building being built. That's not even a thing that we have a choice to say. So I'm moved by public comments, but then constrained too by what our choices are. So. And I think I read up on the gentrification study that's happening that was announced by the mayor. And I don't have any inside information. I don't know what's the latest on that, but it maybe the staff can confirm if that effort to do this study has not made a difference in the rules or how we behave, if that's changed, or if they made like a waiting period or something like that for us, or put a moratorium on any of the choices. I don't think that's the case, but maybe the staff can confirm that.
Staff can definitely confirm that, and thank you for your comments, Amy. You were more eloquent than I am, so thank you. Sarah, do you have a kind of a confirmation for Amy on that?
I know the gentrification study is underway. I don't know too many details on it, but I'm not aware of any moratoriums or pauses in development that are part of it.
Not yet. It's really in a beginning stage and sort of renamed Thriving in Place. But certainly the city is definitely looking at that, looking at the issue of displacement, and the goal is to study that and see what sort of tools we have in the toolbox,
And so
and best
Sheila,
practices that we see.
Just
Go ahead.
to confirm, I guess, for us and the people in attendance, in order for the planning commission to be able to say, pause this for that study to be done, the city council would have to create some sort of a mechanism
Oh, pardon, I missed that part. Yes, that's right.
to
You
allow.
legally are obligated to make a decision on this application.
Okay, perfect. Thank you
Yes,
for
thank
that
you.
clarification.
Pardon?
I heard other commissioners that were speaking up at the same time. Anybody else wish to?
Amy, can I speak? So
Yes,
Amy,
Amy,
thank
go
you
ahead.
so much for your very eloquent comments. I'm always impressed by the job you do here. Both of you, but I'm Amy Berry, as well as Amy Rose. Yeah, I guess in terms of the causality that the public seems to be concerned about new development coming in at the same time as rising rents. There is not a gentrification study specific to Salt Lake City, but there's extensive studies of housing affordability and displacement of neighborhoods from other places. And what we know is the more you restrict development, the worse that is. And the longer we wait to build new housing, the way worse that is. Unfortunately, stopping all new development, it will not, even if we stopped it for 2 years, that does not stop rents of this property owner can increase their rents. They can, as we've discussed, they can already redevelop it into another set of housing that is denser, that would provide more housing units. So I understand very, it's frustrating when your neighborhood changes at a rapid rate, but the development is not the causal. The development is the effect of that. Developers go in when land values have been rising and it becomes profitable to redevelop. And I just, in terms of mitigation, I would not want to see council propose anything to stop development, given we already have a lot of information. I mean, California, they're the poster child. Stop all development, and you raise the median home price to over $800,000, and people have to leave not just that neighborhood, they have to leave the state.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Commissioners, any other comments, or is somebody ready to make a motion of any kind?
I'm ready to make a motion, but I just wanted to echo what Andrea just said, that all of the research that I've seen has shown that putting a halt on new construction causes unaffordability to increase even worse. So based on the findings listed in the staff report, the information presented and input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission approve the planned development, design review, and preliminary subdivision petitions PLN PCM 2021-00824, PLN PCM 2021-00825, and PLN SUB 2021-00826 for the Chicago Street Townhomes, subject to the following conditions. 1, applicant shall submit a final plat for review within 18 months. 2, applicant shall comply with all required department comments and conditions. 3, applicant shall submit a cost estimate and associated documentation assuring shared infrastructure, maintenance, and compliance with 21A.55.110 with the final plat application. 4, final approval of the details for signage, lighting, and landscaping are delegated to the planning staff.
Second, I will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mike and a second from Andra. We'll go ahead and take a vote on that. Brenda?
Yes.
Andreas? Andreas?
Let me just make sure he didn't
Okay,
get muted.
John?
Caller number 2, I'm unmuting you.
Oh, did you?
Okay, yeah,
There you
hello?
go.
You're here. Okay,
Oh, that was
Andreas,
it.
your vote?
I will vote yes, but I was trying to make a comment before, and I guess I was muted, but you couldn't hear me, I guess. But
Okay, go
anyway,
ahead, please.
that's
Go
fine.
ahead.
That's fine. I vote yes.
Okay, did you want to make your comment with your vote?
That's okay. It was kind of mentioned in the other comments as well to some extent, and that's fine.
Okay, I will try to make sure you stay unmuted. and keep an eye on
Thank you
that.
so much.
My apologies. John?
Yes.
Andra?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. And Mr. Hall, you are good on that one. But stick around because I see
Hey,
you're
fuck you,
next
Jared Hall,
again.
you piece of shit.
Okay, moving on to our next item. It is the Laura Dean Townhomes at approximately 355-365 West, 800 North. It is case number PLN.
Fuck you, Jared
S-
Hall. So you
Excuse me?
piece of shit.
Can we mute everyone there? We have case number PLN SUB 2021-00848, which is the preliminary subdivision, and case number PLN PCM 2021-00847 for the planned development. And the planner for this presentation is Diana.
Hello. This is another Jared Hall, as following his last. This is for the Laura Dean Townhomes. This is just a planned development and preliminary plat. He does not have a design review on this one. Just to show you where this is just east of the corner of 400 West and 800 North.
Diana, we do not see any presentation.
I'm sorry. I guess I just didn't want to share. So
You were
sorry.
very excited to just jump into it.
I know. I was just so excited. I guess I'm still pausing from the last one. Sorry about that. Can you see it now?
There we go. There we go.
So here we are. It's just east of this corner at 400 West, 800 North. The applicant is requesting approval for a new townhome development at this location. This development will include 14 single-family attached units, and it will be within two different buildings, so 7 and 7. The two buildings are proposed at approximately 45 feet in height and would be 3 stories. The subject property is just under ½ acre. It is in the MU mixed use zoning district. The applicant is asking for 2 different types of application approval. So the first one would be the preliminary subdivision application for the approval to create 14 new lots. On that note, because he's creating 14 new lots, 12 of those will not have street frontage. Therefore, we get into the planned development approval requirement. So he will need to have the planned development approval for the 12 single family units that will not have public street frontage, reduction of the rear yard setback requirements from 20 feet to 15 feet, and a reduction of the front yard setback from 10 feet to 6 feet, 6.5 feet. This is the plan. I turned it so it would fit better on the slide. North is to the right, so therefore 800 North is on the right. This would be the 2 buildings, 7 units in each building. They would have a shared drive that would go between the 2 buildings and coming out onto 800 North. This is the proposal for the rendering for the proposal. I wanted to add, I added a second slide. I'm going to go to that one rather. When Jared came in, this is the proposal that he had. And I did take it to staff. We felt that it didn't have enough on the front. Obviously, it was very plain. It was 2 blank wall. And it didn't have any connection to the street. So he came back with this, where he put an additional balcony on both buildings and additional windows. The drive, I just want to key that in because that's going to be one of the issues of the condition of approval that we're recommending. The lighting is a little dim throughout that driveway, and even at the peak of noon, that drive area is not going to have a lot of light throughout the day. So one of the conditions of approval is going to be that we're requesting is more lighting. I've talked to the applicant about that. totally on board with that, and he believes that the owners were going to provide more lighting, so there's no problem with them. This is showing the stories and the height of the buildings. They will have the garage unit on the bottom, and they can accommodate 2 parking spaces. They're a little shy on the footage, but they can. The requirement for the MU zone is 1 parking space per unit. So he meets that, but he's also giving the ability to probably get 2 cars in each garage. This shows the top floor, which is kind of an outer deck floor. This is a new multifamily development that just went into the east. It is very new. I was out there probably 3 weeks ago, and I don't think people have moved in yet. Although this picture looks like maybe. But the Mary came in without having to go through the planning commission. So they met all the requirements. It is a multifamily project, so it does have different setback requirements, but they were able to meet it and just go into permitted to build by right. So they didn't have the issues of having to come to this board. And that is on the east property line. If you can see, this over here to the right is one of the houses that will be taken down for the subject property. This is the building to the west. This is the other house that will be taken down for this project. This is an office building. Overall, planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the plan development and the preliminary subdivision plat request for the property, with the one condition that more lighting is added to that garage, to each garage area within that drive, to give it a better lighting. Yeah. I was going to say I spelled it wrong in the staff report, but I did put it lighting on this one. Any other questions or any questions?
Okay, thank you for that, Dana. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Okay, Mr. Hall, do you need presenter privileges again?
Yes, if I can get them, that would be great.
Okay.
Coming to you.
Okay, so I'll go over this fairly quickly again. Again, here's our kind of larger context image. This is a super unique neighborhood. You can see our project site, and then in the most recent Google Earth image, you can see the 3-story townhomes that have just finished next to us. Also occupying a big chunk of the block is a 2-story plus roof deck townhomes. There's a 5-story building just to the south of us a little ways. Across 8th North to the north, there's some 5-story office, some 3-story office. Just across 3rd West to the east is Warm Springs Park. And then just across 4th West to the west is the refinery. So we kind of have all kinds of different uses happening in this part of the neighborhood city. Here's some of the different projects that are in the neighborhood. We've got this 4-story apartment building that finished a year or so ago, and then some 3-story townhomes, and the Mary that's just finished up recently. Some additional projects just in the general neck of the woods. All of this kind of looking at, there's just a wide variety of scale and types of buildings in this neighborhood. So kind of immediately to us, we have our project in the middle, and then west is a 2-story brick office with not much articulation. To the east is the Mary project. You can see in our context sort of elevation here at the bottom, the street is sort of sloping from east and then down to the west. So, and while we are taller than the Mary, we are also under the allowed base zoning height. And through design review, you're allowed to have a building height of 60 feet in this zone. So we are well under that, trying to follow in with kind of the development pattern that has been happening there. Our site plan, so on this project, again, we have 14 townhomes on just under a half acre, which gives us 31 units per acre. We do have the, I like to call 1+ car garage. Salt Lake City requires a 20-foot wide garage to be called to be called 2-car. We're like 19 feet, so you can fit 2 cars, but it's not a technical 2-car. There are 3 street trees out in the park strip that we are intending to protect and keep all of those, plus plant some new ones to get where we're at. We have, for this project, we have a single point of vehicle access, which we like because that's kind of limiting the points at which pedestrians and vehicles are coming together, thus kind of creating stuff a little more safely. Our trash enclosure is at the south end of the site, screens there. And then we have these little front porch balconies that we'll look at a little more in a future side. So again, just like the project we just looked at, our consideration 1 is lots without frontage. And in this zone, condos and apartments are just allowed. As I was going over the project with the developer, we wanted to come before you guys and do townhomes so that we could provide that option for people, because it is so much easier for people to get financing to move in, and it allows them to be a more affordable for the same type of unit than a condo would be. On the rear setback request, so if these were subdivided as condominiums or if they were apartments, 15 feet would be an allowed rear setback. But because they are townhomes, it increases the required rear yard. And we are asking to be allowed to use the 15 feet that would be allowed if this was a condominium or apartment project. On our front yard, you can see we've kind of got a little bit of paved front yard patio area. And then each one of these green things would be a little garden area that would be specific to that front unit. The base zoning is a 10-foot setback. We are asking for a reduction to 6.5 feet, but only our balconies and our kind of roof eave overhangs are into that. The mass of our building is still behind the 10-foot setback. So this kind of shows that same thing in a section. You can see that line for the 10-foot setback, and then our balcony sticking out from the building a couple of feet and reducing that front yard setback. But also in this particular neighborhood, the park strips are really wide. And so even though we're not providing a giant front yard setback, the distance from the street to the building is still really large. On this image, so the building on the left is a building that we'd be allowed per the base zoning. And then the building on the right is what we are proposing with those extra balconies and places for kind of street engagement, and doing that in exchange for the slightly reduced front yard setback. Here's a rendering of kind of what that front garden patio space looks like and how many different opportunities there are for there to be people in the building kind of engaging with people on the sidewalk. And this is kind of the way that would look at night with from above, kind of giving another view of what that front balcony looks like and how we're connecting to the street. We did meet with Capitol Hill Community Council, and one of their concerns was short-term rentals. And I spoke it over with the owners, and their thought is in this particular zone, short-term rentals with the proper permits are allowed in the city, because they're not allowed in any single family zones, but in this zone, they are allowed if you get the proper permits. And the developers feel that to artificially not allow single short-term rentals here would just put increased pressure on other areas of the city where they're not allowed. And so by just leaving it as per the base zoning for this project, it will not affect, it will give the demand for short-term rentals a place to go. So that's my presentation, and I'll be happy to field any questions.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Hall. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant at this moment? Okay. With that, I'm going to open the public comment period, and I see one hand. If you wish to speak on this item, please click that hand in the lower right-hand portion of your screen. Michaela, if you want to start this off, I think Mr. Scheer is the community council rep, so we'll give him 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Mr. Scheer, I am unmuting you.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. For the record, my name is David Scheer. I am the chair of the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council. As Mr. Hall mentioned, this project was presented to our council at our November meeting, and he received some feedback there. Subsequently, it was reviewed by our Infrastructure and Planning Committee, which is empowered by the board to review development proposals in our area and submit remarks to the Planning Commission on behalf of the board. And you have such a letter in your packet there. We oppose the granting of a plan development for this project. If it might make it easier to understand one of our points, if we could have an image, a 3D image of the street facade of the building. Can we have that put up, please?
Michaela, I can put that on if you want to give me host.
Sure, let me pass that. Falls back to you, Diana.
Thank you. And I am sharing this time. There you go.
Okay. It's a little small on this particular slide, but
Sorry.
I think it'll make the point.
Okay.
The frame around the building, which is intruding into the setback, in our view, actually perceptually moves the front of the building into the setback. The applicant asked for the exception to the front yard setback for the balconies, but this move of bringing the entire perimeter of the facade out to the into the setback effectively pulls the building into the setback, and I do not think that should be permitted. Also, the frame that I'm referring to gathers the entire each of the two buildings into a single mass, which, as you can see on the right-hand picture there, is considerably taller than either of the surroundings or any of the other buildings on this street. Mr. Hall refers to buildings that are north of here. I don't see how that is relevant to the streetscape of 8th North. I would also question whether this project even meets the criteria set forth in the code for a planned development. As you know, there are 6 of them, and the first 5, I think, we can dismiss out of hand. The only one that might perhaps be met by this project is fulfilling the requirements of the Capitol Hill Master Plan, which was adopted in 2001. That master plan calls for high density mixed use in this location. Now, of course, the zoning permits only residential, but that's different than specifying mixed use in a master plan. This is not mixed use, obviously, and it does not, therefore, achieve the goal that the master plan, as opposed to the zoning, sets for this project. And as Mr. Hall also mentioned, there is great concern about the creation of short-term rental units in this building. It's an odd argument to make that we should allow it here when we don't want it somewhere else, and that not having it here will encourage more people to violate the law than otherwise would. I find that a rather strange argument to make, and I don't see it as a real justification for ignoring the burden that allowing short-term rental units on this street in this particular part of our neighborhood would place on nearby residents. Those are my comments, and thank you very much for the time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scheer. Okay, that is the only hand I see raised. Kelsey, have there been any written emails that you've received?
I believe Judy Short wanted to speak to this item. Oh, no, not this item. Sorry.
Not that item.
Not that
No.
item. Pardon.
There are no additional emails at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay. With that, I will close the public comment period.
Sorry, Madam Chair, can I add something? Do you mind?
No, I'm
This is
going to
Diana,
come back to
sorry.
you. Yeah, you're going to have a second, believe me.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to bring it back to the commission for any questions or comments, but first I'm going to allow Mr. Hall to respond to anything that came up in that comment, and then I have some stuff for you, Diana, that may be what you want to say as well. Mr. Hall, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, so I would. Yeah, there's a fairly high precedent in Salt Lake City for allowing roof eaves to extend past the required yard setbacks. All residential zones allow a 3-foot extension into the setback for any roof eave. And as such, I would assume the intent of the code is for the setbacks to be where the mass of the building is, more so than the eave, which is what we're kind of providing around, although it is maybe a little bit of an enhanced eave. And we feel kind of that reduction in setback for the trade-off of having the balconies on that front facade and the additional visual interest of the building is a good trade-off. As far as the short-term rental comments, I think it's not dissimilar from the discussion we had on the last one about housing. There is a demand in Salt Lake City for short-term rentals, and to make it not legal anywhere will just force it to go slightly underground and into places that you don't. The city has not kind of created ordinances to allow it there.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Hall. And I'll throw it back to Diana if you want to make some comments now.
Well, I just wanted to make kind of a follow-up to what Commissioner Burrows said on the last application with Jared Hall. It's the same situation. If he were to come back and redesign the project to meet the setback requirements and construct the building under code, he wouldn't need the plan development. He would need the preliminary plat approval, which could be administratively approved. But he could do this. He could do this design, and he could by meeting the setbacks. So again, with Commissioner Burrows' comment to the last one, this applies. So just keeping that in mind, that the design, even with that frame that protrudes, as long as it was within the setbacks, he could have that.
And Diana, I would like you to kind of go over what you wrote in your staff report regarding the short-term rental, because you specified that hotels, motels are allowed, but if they were going to go that route for a short-term rental, they would have to be clarify. Would they have to be a hotel, motel in order to allow a short-term under 30-day rental?
So no, so let me explain that. So the zoning administrator did make an interpretation, and I may need Michaela's help on this, or maybe even Kelsey's. But the zoning administrator did make a determination that rentals, and we don't use the word short-term rental because it's not in our ordinance, but a short-term basis rental that is less than 30 days, including nightly rentals, falls into the same use as a hotel motel. And therefore, the owners of the home could come in and apply for a permit. That would be a business license, which we would check the zoning compliance. There may be some building code issues that they would need to upgrade to, but it is a possibility that they could do that.
And so that a hotel motel is an allowed use in this zone.
In the MU zone, correct.
Zone with the proper permits.
Correct.
So
yes.
Any unit, would they have to zone the entire project? Would they have to get a permit for the entire project or individual units?
No, And there has been interpretations to individual units because these are single family units, attached units. So no, it could just be for each unit.
Okay.
It would not be for the entire project.
Okay, well, that helps me. Go ahead and ask other commissioners if they have questions of the applicant or staff or comments at this time.
I
Madam
just have a
Chair, this is
question for
Amy.
clarification.
Oh, hold on. I think we've got Andreas first, and then I'll come back to you, Amy. Andreas, go ahead.
Okay, so in a hypothetical scenario for staff, basically, if we had, for example, an ADU being built, for some reason in a mixed-use area, they could do a short-term rental?
No, they cannot. So in the residential zones, it is not allowed to have the motel. There's no hotel motel use allowed. So in this one, it's a little different because we're in a special district. It's MU. So that's what distinguishes it. In the residential zones, the hotel motel isn't allowed at all. It's not permitted.
Gotcha. So if there was an MU with an owner that wanted to build an ADU, they could do so.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to wait for some backup from Michaela to confirm on that.
Yes, but that's not what we're really talking about right here.
No, it's not.
Gotcha. Just to put in reference. Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Andreas. Amy Burrows, if you want to go ahead now.
Yeah, my question is, are we specifically allowing or not allowing these short-term rentals, or that's already set up by what zone it is? Are we changing that?
No, that's
So
correct. Yeah,
this is
it's
part of the
already
conversation, but we're not voting for or against short-term rentals to be allowed in this zone, in this whatever
correct.
building happens to.
No, we're not. We're just saying that motels and hotels and motels are permitted uses in this zone. That's not part of this proposal, but it could theoretically be a possibility if they wanted to do a change of use from a residential use to a hotel or motel. And hotel motels are, nightly rentals. There could be building code upgrades. They'd have to get a business license. But that's not what's really in front of you to vote on.
Any other questions or comments, which I think it's important for us to understand all the steps, especially if they've come up in public comments. So I appreciate staff's helping us work through that. Commissioners, any other comments, or is somebody ready to make a motion? I have a comment. Let's backtrack. I have a comment. And this is for the applicant. I'm going to say one of the things that I first learned when I first joined the Planning Commission in regard to plan developments was this idea that the proposal was somehow improving what you could do with the code. And I think the photo of the most recent multi-use or family dwelling is so his proof of that is really unattractive in the street front. And it always saddens me when the code allows for some of those type of things to go through. So I do think your project is an enhancement to what you could do if you weren't doing a plan development. However, I really want to make a comment on all of those windows. You went from like hardly anything to like a lot, and it feels very frenetic. And I would just say that those are going to be, I would be super unhappy if I lived there because those would be really hard to keep clean, to clean all of those, to find window treatments for all of those as you have them laid out and configured. And I would just really encourage you to simplify the windows, that you do want more than what you had, but you kind of went overboard. And to think about the poor person that's going to live there and how they're going to treat that would be nice. That's my comment. Okay, commissioners, if you have any other comments, please give them now or a motion.
I would like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Based on the information in the staff report, the information presented and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the commission approve the Laradine Townhomes Plan Development and Preliminary Plat Applications PLN PCM 2021-00847 and PLN SUB 2021-00848.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Andra and a second from Mike. Go ahead and take a vote on that. Adrian?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Brenda?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Andreas?
I will vote yes, but I would like to make a comment. There seems to be some insecurity as to how to define the allowability of the short-term rentals in certain places, and I think later on, I would advise that staff maybe kind of put something down that we can follow a little better, because in the future I can kind of see how this might run into problems if a resident lives in an area that allows for short-term rentals, and that might cause some issues in the future. Anyway, I will vote yes in this case.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Andra?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
And Maureen?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. We have 7 yes votes and 1 abstention. You are good to move forward, Mr. Hall. Moving on
Excellent.
to the
Thank you.
next. Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item, we have.
Can we take a brief
Oh yeah, I was
break?
just going to check the time. Thank you. I learned from last meeting. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We will reconvene at 7:27. Thank you all. Andreas?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay.
I'm also back.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay. We're just waiting for Adrian and Brenda. Adrian and Brenda, are you both back?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, there we are, Adrian. Give a few more seconds to Brenda. Hey, Brenda, are you back? Okay, I'm inclined to get the meeting going back up and running. I'll go ahead and introduce the next agenda item, and that is TAG SLC General Plan and Zoning Map Amendments. This is case number PLN PCM 2021-01041 for the General Plan Map Amendment, and case number PLN PCM 2021-01042 for the zoning map amendment. And we'll welcome back Caitlin for that presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's see, could I get presenters privileges, please, from whoever is at the helm? Thank you so much. All right. As Madam Chair mentioned, this is a combined request for a general plan map amendment and a zoning map amendment for a property that is just to the south of I-80 and is at 5th East. As you can see, it's a fairly large parcel. It is almost an acre in size, and it has frontage along both 5th East and Warnock Avenue. There is an existing abandoned house that was built in 1900 that is currently occupying the site, but it is severely dilapidated and has been boarded up. So the property owner and the developer intend to remove that and construct some single-family attached units, as you see in their concept plan here. Here are their requests. They are requesting a general plan map amendment from low density residential, which is 5 to 10 dwelling units per acre, to medium density residential, which is 8 to 20 dwelling units per acre. And they're making this request in order to facilitate their zoning map amendment from R1 7000 residential to RMF 35. And they are making this request for the zoning map amendment because single-family attached units are not permitted in the existing zoning. I've included a table in your staff report as well as on the screen here indicating potential land uses which could change if these map amendments are approved. New permitted uses include assisted living facility dwellings, small scale, multifamily, single-family attached, and twin home and two-family dwellings. And then new conditional uses include a community recreation center, an assisted living facility, large scale, congregate care facility, large scale, a group home, large scale, and residential support dwellings, small scale. Additionally, there are a few land uses which are currently listed as conditional uses, which would become permitted uses if these map amendments are approved. These include a community garden, an accessory dwelling unit, a limited capacity assisted living facility, and a small-scale congregate care facility. Additionally, I've included a table indicating the potential lot and bulk changes. As you can see, the existing R1 7000 zone allows for an overall building height of 28 feet or 20 feet depending on the style of the roof, and the proposed zone allows for up to 35 feet. I won't go through all of these, but as you can see, there are some setback reductions in the new zone and some additional building coverage permitted in the proposed zone. So with the public process for these items, we did send out an early notification letter to all of the neighbors and the property owners within 300 feet of this request. And we did meet with the Sugar House Community Council again. That was actually, I believe, the second time that this project had been reviewed by the Community Council. And we got some good feedback from them and presented the map amendment requests. As you can see in your staff report packet, the Sugar House Community Council has provided a letter in support of both the general plan map amendment and the zoning map amendment requests. And staff has received a handful of comments as well that are also in favor of it. At this point in the process, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation of the general plan and zoning map amendment requests to the City Council. If you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to take those. Otherwise, I will turn the time back over to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. Commissioners, any questions for staff at this time? Okay, so we have
Madam Chair, you're muted again.
sorry. So do any commissioners have any questions? Did I even say that out loud? Okay, we'll go ahead to the presenters. We have Jake Billeteri, which I may have mispronounced, and Jordan Atkin, who are the presenters. Do we have, I see Jake's on the presenter list. There's Jordan. Okay, so you're both on the presenters list. Do you need presenter privileges?
Yeah, I put together a short presentation.
Great. Take a minute. Please tell me, how do you pronounce your last name?
Oh, exactly like you said it. You've nailed it. You're 2 for 2 now.
Okay. Phew, that was just luck of the draw.
I'm just trying to find your name here.
So he's in there as
Jacob,
Jacob?
does it look like the ball was passed to you?
Oh man, it's saying something about my system preferences.
That
Yeah,
it
because
does
it's like
actually say that he has that he is the presenter. It says that on.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll figure this out later and just roll with it for now. Sorry that you can't see the presentation. So I feel like Caitlin covered, the major points pretty well. We're here tonight actually representing the property owner, which is currently SJMR Trust. The property is a narrow and long property next to I-80. When we initially kind of approached this project, we spoke with the property owner about the characteristics of the lot and what could potentially be developed on the site. Under the current R17000 zoning, with the planned development, it would be possible to probably get roughly 4 to 6 single-family residences on the lot. However, given the proximity to the freeway, as well as the depth of the lot, we thought that we would try to do some single-family attached housing here. And that is why we are requesting the zoning map amendment and the future land use map amendment. Broadly, we provided a narrative. We feel as though our request complies with the requirements for medium density land uses within the Sugar House Master Plan. And we feel as though the additional density that would be allowed under the RMF 35 zone would meet statements and intentions laid out in both Plan Salt Lake and Growing SLC, the 5-year housing plan. So that's kind of an overview of our thought process and our request. I'm open to questions.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, Mr. Villatary, I'll have you hold tight and we'll open the public comment period. And then if anything comes up during that, I'll give you the opportunity to respond to that. Okay, so I know I'm going to open the public comment period, and I believe we have Judy Short, who's indicated she wishes to speak on this. And then if anybody else in attendance wishes to other comments, please raise your hand. It's the lower hand in the lower right-hand portion of your screen. That lets us know you wish to speak. But Michaela, if you want to unmute Judy.
You're unmuted, Judy.
Thank you. Judy Short, Sugar House Community Council. Again, we flyered the neighborhood and we had this project at our land use meeting. Before the land use meeting, I read through the project and sent Jake probably several emails back and forth about our concern because it backs right up to the freeway. And he had, sort of the front of the house facing the freeway. And so he brought back some other ideas facing it the other direction. And we had some back and forth about materials. Apparently there's insulation and siding you can put on to keep out the CO2 particles and that sort of thing. And as I was reading through this tonight, I thought, that's all well and good, but this is just about the rezone. So we're in favor of the rezone. We think it's a good place where we could add some townhomes and get some extra units in Sugar House. But we also have some serious concerns about mitigating the CO2 that those people could be breathing. And I guess, the planner piece of me thinks, if he came back as a planned unit development, because he has some issues with getting enough parking and the neighbors say there's no parking anywhere nearby, maybe we could work out something that would be very cool and yet sensitive to the environment and the people who are going to live there. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. All right, I don't see any other hands raised. Kelsey, were there any email comments you've received on this?
Yes, Chelsea McGowan would like to speak.
Oh, and she is on the attendees list.
Correct.
Michaela, if you want to unmute her.
Oh, I was like looking for a hand. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yes, there she is. Oh, and I even had a note. Yes, thank you.
Okay. She looks like she's still muted.
Cannot unmute her. Chelsea, I think I'm going to make you a panelist. Chelsea, I made you a panelist because for some reason I wasn't able to unmute you. Can you hear us, Chelsea?
Chelsea, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
I actually can't unmute her in the panelist list either. That's weird.
I do have an email that I could read into the record from Chelsea.
Okay, let's do that for sure.
Okay. Just pull that up. This is from Chelsea McGowan. I would like to make a public comment about the rezoning of Nibley Park concerning 2435 South 500 East. The request to change zoning from low density residential to medium density residential would have a negative effect on the neighborhood. I live in this neighborhood and often walk by this property and believe that keeping it a low density property is best for the community. The lot has many old growth trees on it and it would be devastating to see all the trees cut down.
Okay. Thank you, Kelsey. Any other comments that you've received?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, and Ms. McGowan, I'm sorry we're having technical issues with figuring out how to unmute you or you being able to unmute yourself. But we do have your comments written into the record. So read into the record. Let's go ahead and close the public comment period and bring it back to the commissioners. I do want to also make a clarification point for Ms. McGowan that this is a recommendation to the City Council on both these items, and so it is not your last opportunity to participate. The City Council is the governing body that will ultimately decide this question, so you have opportunities to reach out to your City Council member as well to voice your concerns after this vote tonight. Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff?
So, how many units would be allowed on this site without the zoning change under this R7000?
That is an excellent question. I don't know off the top of my head. The concept plan indicates, I believe, 16 units on the site, but I would have to go through all of the standards and double check that to see if all 16 would be able to fit or if that would be more or less.
I can do a brief calculation. Were you asking how many single family homes could be constructed by right on this
Yes.
property? Okay.
That was what I was asking.
Just one moment.
Just based on the land area.
Getting out the calculators.
I believe it's 6.
6. Is that how many square foot? So the property's just under an acre. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I believe the property, I'm trying to remember what the survey said. It's something like 42,000 and change square feet.
And as you're planning this, there are substantial numbers of significant trees. Later on tonight, we are reviewing the city's new, well, I'm not sure what it is yet, but the open space forestry plan, which makes excellent argument for retaining as many large trees. So what is your plan for doing that?
I
planting
mean,
the trees?
we don't have a final site plan yet. We're going to try and retain as many of the large trees as possible. Obviously, that benefits us on two fronts. It makes the property more appealing and marketable, and it means that we have less trees to replace. In regards to the property, I really do wish I could share the map that I have, because if you walk around and on the property and kind of see where it's been staked, a lot of the larger and older growth trees are either on the LDS property to the south, or a significant portion of them even are on the UDOT property to the north. So we're going to try and preserve the trees on our property to the extent possible, and a lot of the larger trees are on surrounding properties.
Commissioner shared, the applicant is correct. It would be 6 single-family homes.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
Hi, this is Amy Burrows. I wonder if you can show, I'm looking at the map in the staff resort report, and it's kind of hard to tell what is there. What's on the other side from the freeway? Like,
Oh,
an LDS church there?
yeah, so there's one single family residence, and then there's an LDS church to the south. I believe it's actually kind of like an open field that the church uses, but it's church property.
Any other questions or comments, or is somebody ready to make a motion? I will point out we'll have two different motions. They'll be we will need to make them one at a time.
I'm willing to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Based on the information in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the requested general plan map amendment, case number PLN PCM 2021-01041, low density residential to medium density residential for approximately 0.97 acres at approximately 2435 South, 500 East.
Second?
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Adrian and a second from Andra. We'll go ahead and take a vote on the planned map amendment motion. Maureen?
Yes.
Amy?
No.
Okay. Adrian?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Andra?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Andreas?
I will vote yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes, 7 yes and 1 no vote. Do I have a motion for the second, the zoning map amendment?
I'll make the second one as well.
Okay,
Based on the information in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the requested zoning plan map amendment, case number PLN PCM 2021-01042, from R1 7000 to RMF 35 for approximately 0.97 acres at 2435 South, 500 East.
I'll second that.
who was that? Sorry.
Oh, me, Brenda.
Okay, sorry, I didn't
It was
recognize
me.
the
It was me.
voice. Okay. Thank you. I have a motion from Adrian and a second from Brenda. I'll go ahead and take a vote on that. Andra?
Yes.
Andreas?
I will vote yes.
Okay. Adrian?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Amy?
No.
Hey, Mike
Yes.
and John
Yes.
and Brenda.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 7 yes and 1 negative. All right, Mr. Billeteri, you're on to the city council next.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
All right,
Hey, can I ask a real quick question? This is just because I'm curious now, but the city boundary is right near here. What's the other city that this is right up against?
South Salt Lake.
Yeah.
South Salt Lake. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
South Salt Lake would
Thanks.
be to the west of Fifth East.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item is Alta Terra Sugar House Design Review. This is case number PLN PCM 2021-00548. And the planner up tonight is Eric.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Nice to be with you tonight. Know that you can see that screen all right. Good. Okay. So yeah, so this is a design review for Alta Terra North, and you recall in I believe November, the commission approved a design review for the sister project to this Alta Terra South. So the project request is for design review approval for a 228 unit, 10-story mixed use building, which you see here on the right. And it's proposed as 102.5 feet tall. It's in the CSH BD1 zone. And buildings in that zone that are over 50 feet tall are required to go to design review. Are allowed to be up to 105 feet tall total. The applicant is not requesting any other zoning or design standards be modified. So everything else is in compliance. Staff's recommending the planning commission approve the request. So to give a little bit of information on context of where this site is, it's located here on the corner of 1100 East and Ashton. Of course, the property immediately to the south is where the recently approved Alta Terra South building would go. This is the former site of the 24-hour fitness, which has been demolished. Let's see, and you can see on the right-hand side here the zoning. Everything's similar zoning strip, with the exception of Fairmont Park to the east. So this is showing a little bit what's there currently. Of course, the 24-hour fitness has been demolished. See Fairmont Park, and then bottom right here you see where buildings are being demolished to make way for Alta Terra South project. So just some facts on this project. Of course, we talked about the zone. It's in the Sugar House Master Plan. It's 1.28 acres. It's proposed as 102.5 feet tall, 10 stories. Building size is over just under 340,000 square feet. The building would consist of 228 units. They would all be market rate, but there would be a mix of studio 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. See on the ground floor there, on the lower 3 levels, that there would be 12 townhome style units, which would have access directly to the public sidewalk. All the parking for this building would be accessed from a single drive location off of Ashton. Located interior to the building, there'd be 216 stalls. Considerable amount of amenities proposed with the building, lobby, leasing area, pet lounge, a theater, coffee shop, business center, fitness center, maker space, club room, outdoor terrace and pool on the above the 3rd level there, which you'll see another just a little bit more. Imagine the speak to those a little bit further. So in reviewing this, we look at first the base zoning standards for the CSH BD1 zone. And that zone purpose statement calls for promotion of walkable communities with trans-oriented components that can support a 24-hour population. And this definitely does that by having the unit numbers, the higher density, and also having some of the other amenities and components to it, and it's compatible with the neighborhood in that sense. All other base zoning standards have been complied with in this request, but I will note there is a minor encroachment of a single stairwell on Ashton that will need to be removed. That could be done through the building permit. It wouldn't affect the overall design of the building site. It's the design standards, how it complies with those are outlined in your staff report. But needless to say, they go above and beyond on each of the requirements with ground floor glass, multiple building entrances facing on the street facing facades. They have no long expanses of blank walls. Upper floors step back at the third level. Just above the third level, the building steps back 15 feet. They have submitted lighting plans showing all lighting to be directed downward and shielded as required, and all mechanical equipment is screened. Looking at design review standards, the building is required to comply with each of the design review standards A through L. Those are outlined in your staff report on how it complies with each of those. However, one of the primary ones is standard G, which relates to additional building height. And that includes various standards that are met through the building articulation and the step backs, how it creates a more human scaled experience with the sidewalk, and you'll see that a little bit more in the renderings and the elevations. And the building has been designed with a distinct base, middle and top. And again, that step back kind of relates a little bit more to neighboring buildings, or at least the potential height of neighboring buildings. Level 4 courtyard creates some voids and some breaks in the building as well. So looking at those a little bit more, you'll see here, bottom 3 floors are really designed to have a very traditional scale. They're very pedestrianized, so a lot of glass, high quality mix of building materials, lots of entrances, horizontal banding, breaks in the facade and that, but that really helps set the tone for the more traditional development pattern in the area. And then of course the building steps back as required, and that's where the bulk, the size height comes in. Yet it still has considerable amount of balconies, breaks up the materials, surfaces to reduce the overall visual height of the building. So then you can see this is on the north side, abutting the property line. They've used brick to create a pattern and created space for a mural to again bring in some more of those pedestrian elements and make it a little pedestrian friendly. This is the south elevation, which faces Ashton, and again has considerable amount of glass. You'll notice there is an elevation change here along this, and so these lower units actually, once you get onto property line, have stairwells that go down for those handful of units there. They would drop down to a little patio courtyard areas for those units, but again it maintains that pedestrian feel. Got the single entrance for the parking garage, the corner of the building there. And then again on the east, the rear of the building, again more mural space and the decorative pattern with brick. There is, you can see the mix of building materials here. And staff has felt like these are overall appropriate for this large of a building. And, you know, some of the brick in that really is just used to help create these patterns and other things that otherwise be dull. The upper floors tend to be a little bit more simplified. The detail, the majority of the detail is near the pedestrian level, pedestrianized levels. So. A few other considerations with this. There was a little bit of confusion in the staff report in that there were quite a few comments from different city reviewers that were not originally addressed. The applicant submitted originally for the design review, and we routed and reviewed it with all the city departments. However, after that initial review, the applicant submitted for building permits and submitted updated plans there. Those building permits have been reviewed as well and are still in process, of course. The vast majority of the outstanding comments have been addressed from the various departments. There's a couple minor issues, but none that should affect design review, unit count, parking, those type of issues. Originally, their plan also included proposals for public way improvements, including brick pavers in the corner of Ashton, 1100 East, painted bike lanes, and some other amenities. They'd like to create a real connection with the park and have that be an amenity that feels very connected for the residents. However, that's really not part of design review. We're looking at the on-site improvements and proposals. So they are going to have, in some cases, applied for appropriate permits with engineering, public utilities, transportation to review those other components separately. The only thing I wanted to note as well is signage at this point has not been finalized, and so that will need to come at a later time. So with that, staff is recommending, finding that it generally meets applicable design review standards, and is recommending the Planning Commission approve the request with the one condition that the final approval for signage for the development be delegated to staff to review in accordance with adopted standards and ordinances. That's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Any questions for staff at this time?
I remember.
Yeah, Eric, I just go ahead, Amy.
I remember when we talked about the smaller project that there were a lot of public comments about that there would be mixed use in this building. Is there any retail space or anything in this building proposed?
So the mixed use component comes in the form of the maker space. There's a coffee shop proposed, a few other, some of them I guess you could consider amenities, but there's theater, there's fitness center, there's all those other components, but there is a proposal for a coffee shop in there and maker space.
Ooh, what's a maker space?
So that's, and the applicants could probably speak more to that, but makerspace is typically for emerging artists and other startups that space go in there. Usually they pay a small amount and they're renting space for whatever endeavor they're starting up.
So some of those are just amenities that just the tenants can use, but like a coffee shop is a public.
The applicant could probably address that a little further as to the maker space and some of the other amenities in the coffee shop.
Okay, thanks.
Andra?
Yeah, Eric, I just want to clarify. So in the staff report, it on page 10, it says the building will include a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom dwelling units intended to appeal to the young professional residents. But you mentioned there'd be studio 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, and I guess the full unit mix appears on page 11 of the staff report. If you could just clarify what the unit mix is going to be?
Okay, I don't know if I have the exact number of each one in front of me, how many units of each type. I could probably research that a little bit more, or the applicant may have it a little bit more
It's in the
readily
staff
available.
report. It does say specifically on page 11, the unit mix.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just wondering your presentation, whether something has changed since the staff report was prepared, or whether what's happened that the presentation is disconnected from the staff report.
Okay, so yeah, those are part of the applicant submitted materials up front. The latest ones we have show that some of the townhomes would have, yeah, so this has got 3 bedroom. Let's see. Sorry.
It looks like it's under a 2-bedroom.
Yeah, you're right, and it may, I'm wondering if I'm pulling information from the latest plans that were submitted with the building permit and didn't update that in staff report. But as I understand it, there are 3 bedroom units as part of the townhome. Some of those have that, and maybe the applicant could clarify that a little bit. But I believe there's that full mix studio through 3 bedroom.
Eric, is it possible you can turn up your audio a little bit or speak up a little bit into your microphone?
Is that any better?
That's so much better. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there we go. I'll try not to eat it.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, we will.
Actually, I'm a little confused about what's going on in the ground floor, but maybe I could ask that of the applicant, because it seems like the townhouses, some of them are going downstairs from the ground floor. I can't really read this.
Maybe we can have the applicant address that as well, and if it doesn't satisfy, I think they would have more information on that. So let's move on to the applicant's presentation, and then if they don't specifically address that, Brenda, bring that up afterward. Okay, so it looks like we have Sam Watkins, who is the presenter, and I see he's on the presenter list.
Well, it'll actually be Mark Isaac and Mike Augustine. We're both in the same location, so we're also on the presenter list.
Okay, I have you guys as, yeah, the presenter group. So does Sam not need, who's going to need presenter privileges is my question.
Mark will be the presenter privileges. I'll be happy to answer the questions that were just recently brought up.
Okay, so presenter privileges would be like if you had something to share visually, you needed to share your screen or a presentation.
Okay, do we?
Yeah, we can do that because we can refer to it with the questions to kind of help the commissioners.
Okay, so if you would, I don't know, whose name are we looking at? Michael Augustine?
Yeah, Michael Augustine, sorry. Yes.
No, I was looking for Mark's name and I was like,
I know. Who to give the rights to? Let's give them to Mark Augustine, and then you should have presenter rights now.
Okay, let me,
There we go. Okay, and as you know, you've got up to 10 minutes, so the time is yours.
start here.
Perfect. Good evening, Planning Commission, senior staff. Eric, thank you for your work. I think we've got Judy Short on board with us tonight. She's going to be presenting on behalf of the Community Council and the Land Use Committee. My name's Mark Isaac. Michael Augustine is principal and founder of Altaterra Real Estate and the owners of the project. To kind of back up just for a little bit, when we came to see you in November with the south building that you can see on the right-hand side of your screen right now, it created a little bit of confusion with unit mix, unit makeup, unit breakup. The application that we did originally to the city was, these are sister buildings that communicate with one another, like similar, same development, same project, same phasing, same everything. Because they were 2 different legal parcels, planning staff suggested that we bifurcate the submittal into 2 when all of our imagery, renderings, unit counts, and the like were originally created as a cohesive project. The part that we're most enthusiastic about in presenting to you all tonight is this is a really unique opportunity for the developer to influence both sides of the street. We get to create the streetscape on the north side of Ashton and the gateway or the entrance or the visible nature of the east side into Fairmont Park. As a lot of you know, especially those of us who live in Sugar House, Fairmont Park, to have eyeballs, lighting, engagement, and improvements around it is going to dramatically benefit the adjacency residents, the area, and the community as a whole. Fairmont Park, the city is and the community has invested a tremendous amount into, and we've not had the easiest time making it safe and clean for a myriad of reasons. And subsequently, what we were trying to accomplish with bike lanes, widening the pedestrian corridor, and the two sides of the street was to better engage pedestrian connectivity off of Highland Drive to the east that would move west into the park. A couple things that we're demonstrating on this rendering in front of you right now. We are still working with transportation and the city's engineering departments on. And the reason is simply this: we're trying to build more sidewalk, more plaza, and more bike lanes than the city was initially, not the city, a couple departments were a little concerned at the width we were taking. For those of you that are familiar with this area, this roadway width, the actual hardscape or asphalt is 80 or 90 feet wide. It becomes a bit of a raceway to the liquor store, a bit of a shortcut around some of the traffic that is the Sugar House Central Business District. And for a myriad of reasons, and all obvious reasons, we're trying to calm traffic. We're trying to engage connective tissue up through Park Avenue and Sugar House Park into the bike lanes and the bike servicing that we have in the area to the light rail transit component of the S line or the Sugar House streetcar line that has bike lanes all the way down to the Jordan River Trail. We believe that the residents that are going to move into this area are going to be engaged in enjoying the park, bike share, light rail transit, and obviously they're going to frequent, dine, and recreate in all the retail opportunities that are in the Sugar House Central Business District. You're going to see and you're going to ask us about some of the amenities, streetscape commercial amenities and services. And please understand that we're off of Highland Drive, we're off of the high visibility corridors, and more engaged in a park setting, in bike and pedestrian circulation, and a really, really vibrant, what we're hoping, unique living experience in Sugar House. But it doesn't lend itself real well to a tremendous amount of commercial activity for retailers. I'm doing a couple projects, as some of you know, in Sugar House. We are carefully watching ground floor retail and the success and the failure rates of ground floor retail in Sugar House. And there's 16 or 17 current retail spaces in buildings that have been built recently that are vacant. Some of them have never been leased. A lot of them are having a hard time maintaining activity and user space there. So we're inclined to believe that we don't need to add more retail and more commercial opportunities in this bandwidth. We need to provide more bodies, more head counts, more enthusiasm for some of the connective tissue that is Sugar House and Fairmont Park. And so Michael will address a little bit of that with questions when we're finished. I'm going to turn things over a little bit for Michael to just walk you through the design, the iterations. But one thing I want to just demonstrate to you as we go into this, the first 3 or 4 or 5 floors of the hard corner that is the gateway into the park are all built as amenities for the residents to overlook the park for everything from recreation to exercise to makers space, to coffee gardens, lobbies, and so on and so forth. We've been very thoughtful in how we wanted to engage that hard corner and that crosswalk circumstance to try and influence visibility and a safer environment around the dog park and some of that Fairmont Park corner that we've actually had some difficulty in protecting and defending from some other activities. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Michael. The last thing I will say, I forgot to mention, We have been working with the Sugar House Community Council and the Land Use Committee since last January. Each presentation we started literally a year ago, more than a year ago. Every presentation we had citizen comments, community council comments, land use committee comments, and we incorporated all those comments into design iterations over 6 or 8 months. And then when we made the submittals to the city in May and June and July, a lot of that dialogue has occurred. So we never intended for these two to be bifurcated. And I seem to recall on our last hearing, Amy Burrows had some concerns about what we were doing on the north side. I'm hoping that Mike can speak a little more eloquently into how we were trying to tie the two together. And maybe it helps answer Andra's questions with regards to unit makeups and stuff. Studios and smaller units are in the south building on the south side, closer to the freeway. And a lot of the larger market rate, a little bit more expensive units, quite frankly, and larger amenitized units are going to be in the north building on the north flank. With that being said, Michael, take it away.
Cool. Yeah, thank you and good evening. I'm not going to restate and just run through renderings that Mark and Eric have done such a good job in their presentations. We only really have a few to show. And I will answer the questions that were addressed as part of this presentation. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my mouse. There it is. So anyway, we start off with our first rendering, as you've seen on some other presentations. We're at the corner of Ashton and 1100. You know, this is the main entrance to the north building. And I can address a couple things here. So we don't have any, as Mark stated, sort of commercial space retail per se. Our approach to this is because we've never been commercial or retail developers, but we always build very thoughtful sort of top of market amenities, is that we have created 3 or 4 spaces here. So we've got the maker space, I'll call more of like a co-working space. So very similar to a group, industry where you can rent out small offices, have larger collaboration space. You've got all the technology. It'll be available to our residents. It'll be available to anybody who wants to come in and rent space or frankly, hang out and sit at the office. On the ground floor as well, I'm sorry, I know my mouse is probably smaller on the screen, but to the right-hand side of the main entrance on the corner, we've developed a patio, and the patio leads into a large coffee/bistro area. Our approach to this, and actually working with the Sugar House Community Council, has been really thoughtful in that what we would like to try to do, rather than build a shell space and then hope someone wants to come into this corner of Sugar House, is actually build out the amenity as if we were the end user, but try to work with people in the community. We've been talking with the Sugar House Chamber of Commerce, and we'd like to have people who have been priced out of Sugar House, either through just market conditions or a lot of redevelopment, just come in and take our space for low or no cost and operate an actual coffee shop so that it really activates the space for our residents. That's kind of what we're looking to do in our large coffee shop. It's indoor, outdoor. We also have a full bike storage and maintenance area in this building as well. So we're working with some of the local bike shop areas. And again, I know this project being built is far out, but we'd like someone to come in and actually be thoughtful and let them use the space for free as a satellite office or a satellite space to something they may have downtown or in East Central or various locations of the city. It just gives them more exposure. We have a similar concept with our spa and pet lounge, where there's a wash station, and we've got a large room that has a bunch of equipment and amenities for pets, which we know we'll have in the building. But if we can find a pet shop owner or pet spa owner to come in and allow them to use the space and market themselves, in a manner that's free, in a location that's going to be very active and have pets, et cetera, we just think it's good for the community. The one part about the retail or the restaurant component of it that we've really focused in on, which we're trying to, we're working with the city, we're working with transportation, we're working with engineering, we're working with city parks to figure out how we can create an area where we can just have like a lot of food trucks come and do events like that. So you've got the restaurants coming to us versus trying to create space and hope that, the restaurants will pay for, expensive commercial space. So regarding the, mixed use sort of commercial area, we do have tons and tons of amenities in here, and a lot of them will be used for the public. And the hope is that all of them, the ones that we have designed, will be taken by, small business owners in the community. And we've been having a lot of, fruitful conversations with people. That's this view here.
Hey, Michael, you have about a minute or so left.
Okay, I'll cruise through it. And again, I'm kind of duplicating stuff on renderings. This is our northwest corner. So again, Fairmont Park to the right, 1100 East. Again, we have placeholders. We've been working with the local art community. There's a lot of very interesting things I know. I think Judy might speak to, because Judy's been a huge advocate of ours in connecting people to the community and how we bring the right art and history and murals, etc., to the community that ties to Sugar House, not just some thoughtful rainbow design here. Again, that's just a placeholder. Excuse me one second. I'll pull this up. I think you saw this in another one, but a lot of our excitement around this, amongst many things, has been an amazing Fairmont Park frontage. So we have designed the building to create ground floor townhomes, amenities, the pool deck you can see. We have a sky lounge, which is actually on the back end, but a lot of our amenities you can see on the first and second floors, third floor, which is our co-working space, fourth floor and fifth floor, which is combo fitness, and the pool deck, all face the park. That's it for my presentation. I know there are a couple other comments that weren't addressed, and I'm happy to do that at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, mainly Brenda, I think, because I don't think he answered your question. You want to pose your question now? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I actually, I think he didn't, but I've been looking at the plans so more closely. The things we're seeing on the front here, aside from things on the right-hand side, which is the corner, this special corner piece where you have a plaza, you have an additional plaza that you're negotiating, I guess. But the things on the left hand and then farther on the other side, yeah, actually too. These are townhouses that have their entrance right on the street. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Everything where my cursor is right now to the left is actually ground floor, 3-story townhomes.
Yeah, I can't see your cursor. Oh yeah, there I see your cursor.
Sorry,
Okay, and then above, that's okay. Above, and so the entrance to the units themselves, I mean the elevators to the units, are only on the right side. Is that correct? So if I had to sort of go all the way around, or how do I get into the units?
Correct. So the actual entrance to townhome units are on the ground floor, and that applies to all 12 of them. The entrance to the apartment units, as soon as you walk in our lobby, we have an elevator core in the lobby that will take you up. We also have elevator cores. They go into the parking garage as well. There's 2 locations. So you park your car, there's 2 opportunities in the garage to get to the apartment units, or if you're coming in from the park, you would walk in through the main lobby entrance and hit one of the elevator cores straight up to the units above.
You have basically 2 big masses above the 3rd level. Is that correct? 2 sort of back-to-back units. What am I seeing in the background? Is that another building?
Oh, it's a U-shaped building, so that's just the back part of the U. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think that and so none of these. So you don't have an elevation change at the ground level that would require you to have ramps or anything like that. Is that correct? Okay.
No, I know, as Eric pointed out, there's a significant grade difference on Ashton Avenue to the right-hand side of this plan.
Yes.
And so we do have stairwells and ramps actually that go down to the unit doors to meet, accessibility.
Okay, that was my question.
Yes.
So on Ashton Avenue, where you have those ramps and stairwells, how far do they have to go down to meet the unit entrance?
Oh, how far do they go down?
Yeah, how far do they go down?
That's a great question. I don't have Sam. I know Sam is on the phone. He is our architect and one of the.
Do we have a section on that or anything like that that shows us where?
I don't.
Because I'm concerned about the streetscape with that, because I know that ramps like that and places where you have to go down are not exactly a great streetscape. This is a wonderful streetscape here that we're showing, but if the Ashton Avenue streetscape has, things which go into the ground, that's a little bit different.
And if memory serves me correctly, Brenda, I think it only affects a couple units, 2 units on the most eastern side of the building. If memory serves me correctly,
the plans show it actually affects only 1 unit, but
yeah,
I'm not sure I'm reading that correctly.
We work very hard to try and affect that ADA circumstance over there and access, and this is the one edit that Eric mentioned with the staircase.
Here, I can pull this up if this adds some color. This is an south elevation.
Ah, yes, there you go.
Yep.
There you go. So where's the ground level here?
Yeah, so the ground level, you can actually see.
Is that dotted line there? Is that the ground level?
That's correct. Yes.
Yep. You know what it's
The
going to look
ground,
like, Brenda, is across from the Dodo. If you recall, there's a 21 in view apartment just up the street in Sugar House where the ground floor units on the one section of the building are kind of submerged into the terrain. And it's just for a couple units at the Dodo. It's a really good example of what we're trying to accomplish here.
okay, so you have like 4 units here that are submerged. Well, actually, if the dotted line here is
No,
the level of the ground level,
No, it's not that upper
I'm
dot.
not clear what's going on. Where's the ground level? Where's the section line of the ground level?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I don't think it's
looking for
shown
that
on this
now.
rendering.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think you can see, Brenda, this is Sam Watkins art with BKV Group, the architects, and you can see how those landings step down and then towards the left we're at grade. Now inside the building, the parking garage ramps down, and those units that have these stairwells for their front entrances will have direct access from the lower level of the garage into their units.
I'm more concerned about the pedestrian experience at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to
You know,
find it.
what is going on there with the sidewalk and the landings and the going down into the ground, and what's going on there?
Yeah, so the stairwells that go down are actually really hugging the building. We had to pull those back so that it did not encroach, but we do have an extended sidewalk out. So we have sidewalk, we have the trees that are spaced. It's really not much different than the experience that a pedestrian will have on the west side of the building. Because the stairwells originally were designed to come, out from the building towards the building, but they were encroaching over the property line. So now they're just hugging the building, and we had to pull back these units. But the sidewalk that comes out, let me give me 1 second if I can find something.
Yeah, I'm really not seeing this in your plans anywhere. So I'm not seeing an elevation that shows as well in my packet. But okay, I see the plan.
There we go.
Zoom in on that. It's hard to see.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it so that the resolution doesn't just go.
I see. So it's kind of it goes into the ground. Okay.
And the units were sucked back in underneath the building a little bit, Brenda, so that we could get that difficulty off the pedestrian way in the landscape strip and maintain that cohesive connective tissue there up to Highland Drive, Pibbs Exchange and the liquor store and stuff all along there. And so they're sort of tucked into the unit.
Okay, I was just trying to understand it. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant at this time? All right, you guys hang tight. We'll open the public comment period and then allow you to respond if anything comes up for that. Michaela, if we want to have Judy present and then give her 5 minutes.
Judy, you're unmuted.
Thank you. We received the 1121 Ashton Avenue project, July 7th. And then at some point, we were told the city decided to separate the design review of each building separately. So we'd be doing 1132 first. And August 4th, we got notice from the city regarding 1132 and sent a letter in October. Up till July, we had had numerous meetings with these guys, as Mark said, giving them all sorts of feedback, and they sucked it up, and out came improved buildings. It's been great to work with. So we didn't hear another word about the 1121 project till I saw it on the Planning Commission for tonight. This is not at all what I would call satisfactory notice. Fortunately, the developer had walked us through both buildings, but we never learned anything about what design changes have been made, which makes it extremely difficult to make comments. This is irritating. The developer did provide a slide that shows the current materials, but it's difficult to interpret where they might be used on this large building. The building is well designed and clearly meets the design standards required in the Sugar House Business District zone. I think this is the first building that's asking for nearly 105 feet of height, which is allowed under design review. The step back in the building's design help to modify the feeling of a real tall building when walking by, and the amenity package is more than adequate. There are 4 crosswalks, 2 on the south end of Ashton and 2 on the west side of 11th East to connect with Fairmont Park. It's my understanding there'll be improvements to the dog park, such as extra lighting. This dog park right across from Ashton Avenue makes this building much safer, makes the dog park feel much safer, I think. Due to the unusual right-of-way for 11th East, they'll be looking to collaborate with the city and enhance the use of Fairmont with wider public sidewalks, and Mark talked about food trucks and that sort of thing. They will use local artists for the murals. They will have some old Sugar House photos in the walkways. They've been contacted by a woman whose grandfather ran the original bowling alley that was the bowling alley before 24-hour fitness. So we're talking a long time ago. She's offered to provide some old photos, and we hope they'll be incorporated into the project in some way. Sidewalks will be 8 feet or wider to comply with the recently approved Sugar House Business District guidelines. And the low-cost retail space is amazing. Sugar House used to be known for the small, cute shops we had. But they're now charging, I hate to say it, but some number like $10,000 to rent one of those shops per month. None of those guys making small things can pay that kind of rent. So this is a wonderful opportunity, and maybe it'll be the start of something in other places. It's a nice mix of materials and colors, and this will be an attractive building. We appreciate they're planting more trees than required. We've asked them to consider bird-safe glass on the west side because birds like to fly into windows that get a big reflection from the sun at sunset. The law library is a good example. We don't like the transportation department's assessment that there's too many parking stalls. If they're willing to provide these, they should be allowed. The neighborhood in this area has been groaning for some years since Liberty Village apartments were built, that the overflow parking has filled up their neighborhood. The red paving currently being used by the city for crosswalks would be a fine substitute for the red brick material shown in the original plans. Transportation thought the brick wouldn't be long-lived, too much maintenance. And to reiterate, no public comments have been submitted up to now because we received no notification by the city. This project should be approved tonight so they can begin the permitting process. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Judy. Kelsey, have you received any written comments to read into the record?
No, I have not at this time.
Okay. Don't see the other hand raised. So with that, I will close the public comment period. I don't think anything new came up for the applicant, but Eric, if you want to talk, just make a point about notification so that everybody is clear on what you did.
Sure. So as was mentioned, I sent notification for this project in, I can look up the exact date here, but in June or July. And typically what we'll do is that is when the project's received. So it was for the project before it was, or after it was split. But we typically wouldn't send any modifications or corrections or second revisions of plans. That's something that certainly, those plans would be available in that. And, we could look at if there's a certain criteria for notifying of any changes or whatever. But yeah, it was sent on July 7th, and I did receive pretty immediate feedback from the council chair that that they had been working closely with the developers and did not need to receive any other updates or comments. And if they did, they would reach out to me. So that's how I proceeded.
Okay, then. All right, commissioners, any questions, comments, discussion at this time?
Well, I do think this is a good project. It has gone through a lot of community process, and I certainly agree with the neighborhood council's support of this project. And I I had a few concerns about the streetscape, but I think my concerns have been addressed, so I supportive of it.
Great. I would just say, Mark, one comment I would make as a frequent user of the dog park, many days a week. The lighting would be great. It would be awesome if you were going to maybe partner with Friends of Fairmount Park to plant some trees. We lost some in the dog park due to the heavy snow. That would be a really nice partnership as well. Just throw that out there. If commissioners are ready, I'm willing to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair.
Please.
Based on the findings listed in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission approve the design review request for the Altaterra North project located at 1121 East Ashton Avenue for petition PLN PCM 2021-00548, subject to complying with the following condition listed in the staff report. Final approval for signage for the development to be delegated to staff to review in accordance with adopted standards and ordinances.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Brenda and a second from Mike. Let's go ahead and take a vote. Brenda?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Andreas?
I'll vote yes.
Thank you. John?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And Andra?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Good luck, Altaterra Group.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your time tonight. Moving on to the last agenda item is a work session, so we are no longer in a public hearing phase. This is the Urban Forest Action Plan briefing. And Laura, is it Bandera or Bandara? It's going to present.
It's Bandara, but
Bandara.
I've been called Bandana. It's all good.
I don't want to do that. Bandara. Laura Bandara, you're up.
Okay. Well, I know that you all have hung in there, so I will try to I'm basically just going to throw a lot at you, and I'm absolutely fine if you want to hold questions to email to me or, for another time, because I realize we're getting late here. But I do have a presentation that I'd like to share, and this is really just to give you an overview of what we're currently working on. And then I anticipate that the plan will be, put in front of you for a decision in the next couple of months. Okay. So can you guys see my screen, Urban Forest Action Plan?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
So just to briefly introduce myself I haven't met all of you, I've met a few of you. I'm the urban designer in Salt Lake City, and I work in the planning division. But as this title of this might clue you in, I collaborate with departments citywide to address urban design needs. And this is really just an overview presentation to orient you to what we're doing and why we're doing it. So the vision for this plan was actually set out in our general plan, which was adopted in 2015, where the residents of Salt Lake City told us that they wanted to continue to maintain and grow our urban forest. And the purpose of the plan is really to develop a collaborative framework to realize this vision. And we're using an action plan because action plans take a holistic view of an issue to address interconnected challenges, and also develop priorities and find solutions. And it's really about kind of uniting policymakers, planners, community members around a shared cause. And because the urban forest is a modified natural system that intersects with a lot of our built systems, it really needs a collaborative approach. So planning has been leading the project in close collaboration with urban forestry, as well as the departments of sustainability and public utilities. So the principles of the plan are, the urban forest is a public good. It's a, city network and amenity that are used and shared by all. The urban forest is public infrastructure. It's a living infrastructure system. The urban forest can provide a tremendous return on investment, but we need a plan and a strategy to make sure that we are reaping those benefits and also using our natural resources wisely and efficiently. And then, really importantly, we want to distribute, it's a public good, we want the urban forest to be spread equitably across the city. To do that at scale is really going to require partnerships across communities, agencies, institutions, and the public and private sector. So just to briefly go into the urban forest benefits, I'm not going to read these to you. Certainly happy to provide this to anyone that would like to see them. And then all this information, of course, will be in the plan. But in terms of environmental impacts, we're focused on air and water quality and how the urban forest can mitigate those impacts. Air quality, we all know about inversions, but we also have, if you can see from this graph here, a pretty persistent summer air quality problem. And we've started to improve our winter air quality. And that summer air pollution is really ozone, and the right trees in the right places can address ozone pollution. A big thing that we all experienced this past summer, urban heat island. We can reduce energy consumption and thereby fossil fuel use if we're shading buildings appropriately. The urban forest, people will bike if they're in the summer, if they're, people choose to bike more on shaded streets than unshaded streets in the summer. And actually, there's a wealth of research on how the urban forest can improve physical and mental health outcomes. And then as urban designer, one of the things I'm really interested in is how the urban forest can improve livability in urban design. And this is my, a picture's worth 1,000 words slide. But, we have research that shows that people will stay longer and spend more money in retail district with trees. Most people are familiar with trees' impact on increasing property values. But the other thing that's really interesting is that when you incorporate trees into, very consciously into the design of neighborhoods, it provides more and better opportunities for neighbors to socialize and build community. And there are studies that demonstrate an association between the number of trees and community cohesion in urban neighborhoods. So kind of big picture, what we're what we're anticipating will come out of the plan is that we're really aligning our policy, ordinance, and practice around the urban forest with the city's larger goals for growth, environment, and community. So for example, with growth, the urban forest, healthy trees can add value for developers by increasing property values. But we can also potentially trade space for on-site stormwater retention, potentially providing more area to develop. One thing we're looking at is incentives for suspended pavement systems downtown, which I'll get into a little bit, to get large trees that would mitigate those urban heat island impacts and reduce stormwater flows and improve water quality. Environment, I kind of talked about a little bit. One thing that we're looking at too is how heat, in addition to air quality, creates a public health burden on those who are the most vulnerable, so children and older adults. And then these impacts are disproportionately experienced by low-income community members. And then in terms of how it's going to align with our goals for community, my next slide's talking about the analysis we've been doing will kind of kind of give you an idea, but it's very much an equity focused plan. So I often get a question about why we're using 2014 data, and this is the most complete and accurate data set we have at this point that was publicly available. We are working on getting some updated data, hopefully sometime in this, early this year. For this analysis, we've really tried to focus on our primarily residential and commercial areas, which is why why you don't see City Creek Airport and Northwest Quadrant here. And we wanted to kind of make an apples to apples comparison. What's very telling here is that you'd expect to see high canopy in City Creek, and then you'd expect to see low canopy in the airport and Northwest Quadrant because of the ecology and land use in those areas. But when we look at our other master plan areas, we find a phenomenon that's you see throughout cities in the US, which is that wealthier communities have more tree canopy and thus, reap greater benefits from the urban forest than lower income communities. So the avenues East Bench and Sugar House have about twice the canopy as the Northwest and master plan areas. And then downtown, of course, actually has the lowest amount of tree coverage of all of our master plan areas. The East Side has about 4 times the canopy of downtown. And so in downtown, some of this is related to historical redlining practices, but it also has to do with these very challenging growing conditions in the area of the city that's the most highly paved and has very difficult growing conditions for trees. Salt Lake City recognizes the lasting impact of redlining, federal policy that was implemented nearly a century ago. And we're certainly not alone here. The multiple recent studies in cities throughout the United States demonstrate similar phenomenon between wealthier neighborhoods having greater tree canopy, and it typically works out to be twice the amount of lower income, historically redlined areas. And just to look at that a little bit more closely, you can see again those redlined or D grade areas have the least amount of tree canopy. So the pattern is still apparent even when we zoom out to a larger view of the city and incorporate areas that weren't included in those redlining maps of the 30s. So this map that I'm sharing here illustrates the difference in land surface temperature at a single point in time. And it's land surface temperature is measured by satellite and indicates how hot a given surface feels to the touch. So we can see that downtown surface temperatures are comparable to the Northwest Quadrant. And I will just quickly say Capitol Hill has higher surface temperatures than you might expect kind of at first blush, but remember there's those industrial areas there. And then also this was taken at 5 p.m. July 31st, west facing slope that has been heating up all day long. That said, the East Bench has west facing slopes, but the surface temperatures still average out to be cooler. Again, the redlining policies of the past, have implications here. And I should note, there's a complex interaction of variables, but at least looking at surface temperatures kind of gives us an idea of which areas in the city need more shade and cooling. And we're working with partners at the University of Utah to get kind of more accurate and more specific kind of measurements to help us figure out where the need is greatest so that we can address it. That said, even just looking at surface temperature alone, the correlation with redlining is fairly striking. So some of the analysis we're doing, obviously starting just with looking at these 2019 ACS census tracts, tree coverage. We're looking at, where there are more children. We see that where there are more children, there are fewer trees. That's also important because studies have shown a relationship between lower rates of childhood asthma in neighborhoods with trees. So areas with approximately 900 trees per square mile have lower childhood asthma rates than areas that had fewer trees than that. And so, tracking where we have more kids and where there's more asthma is also giving us some insight into which areas would benefit from more trees. There's also a relationship then with those areas with higher asthma and fewer trees also have larger numbers of residents without health insurance. So kind of, again, big picture, anticipated recommendations of the plan. I won't read this to you, but it goes back to this public goods, valuing, getting the return on investment by valuing the ecosystem and quality of life benefits. We're also looking at how to provide solutions in the right of way, where we're seeing a lot more competition for trees, utilities, other things as the city grows, but also providing guidance to our reviewers and inspectors so that we're kind of all working from the same set of information in our kind of day-to-day interactions with the urban forest. So just again, I'll give you one quick example solution. There's a lot at sort of every level in the plan, but this will I'm just going to briefly highlight one example for paved areas. So I mentioned earlier suspended pavement systems. Sometimes people refer to them with the brand name Silvacell. So these support the weight of the pavement, but they provide space for tree roots to grow without soil compaction. So that means the tree can grow big and healthy. And then an added benefit is it can store overflow stormwater, which, if you also recall this summer, we're starting to see these kind of localized flooding events downtown. And that stormwater that it stores eventually infiltrates into the soil. And so, you're getting cleaner water in the groundwater system. And a 10-year study in a commercial area in Toronto showed that these supported pavement systems increased tree canopy while using a small surface area, provided stormwater management by reducing water volumes, improved water quality, and that they actually had a lower maintenance cost than other types of living infrastructure because, again, so much of that supporting stuff is underground and not being impacted by the flotsam and jetsam of urban life. So that is the end of my presentation. I know I kind of threw a lot at you all at once. The memo that was I submitted had a lot more information about kind of what our next steps are, and I also gave you the first 4 draft chapters to look at. So I'm more than happy to take questions now, but I also completely understand if you would like to reserve those questions for later. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Laura. So your intention though tonight is to get some feedback and ideas of things we'll be looking at for when you come back to adopt this?
If basically I wanted to make sure that you were aware that this was happening and that this was kind of coming down the pike for you to make some decisions on.
Okay.
And again, right now this is really focused on kind of all of our streetscapes, parks, golf courses, land that the city owns, which I know you guys tend to make a lot more decisions about private property. So I just wanted to also kind of reinforce that, a lot of these higher level policy recommendations that the plan will be making have to do with kind of the way we actually do business at the city. So.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Laura?
I have a few comments. Laura, this is an outstanding report. Thank you so much for this. I read it actually fairly carefully and I shared it with several people. Because I do think that air quality is a first order problem. I agree 100% with the mayor on this. And there's limited things we can do about climate change. We can deal with cars. What you presented was incredibly well researched. I am a little bit concerned about funding mechanisms. I would actually like us to see it expanded not just to the property that Salt Lake City owns, but more generally a program to plant more trees. And I wondered about, there's currently a 1.5% fee that the redevelopment agency is charging on all new projects that's going to public art. Great. But I think in terms of willingness to pay, my guess is the public of Salt Lake City would benefit more from some of that being reallocated to more urban forest. I'm ever so slightly, I'm a little bit nervous when I see things about higher impact fees, which the report did mention as one potential funding mechanism. The concern that can arise is if you make development too costly in Salt Lake City proper, we have people moving out to Taylorsville and ever further places. So perversely, they drive more to come in. And we sort of have the perverse effect that I've seen in some cities where a very well-intentioned environmental regulation actually has the opposite effect. So I'm a little bit, and of course, the redevelopment fees at this point, given most of the development is on the west side, where you highlighted incredibly well, the historic problems they've been having, that would fall on their affordable housing issues. So it just might be something to bring up with the mayor and council, is that redevelopment agency. Again, public art is great, but we just have limited resources in terms of funding mechanism. And my guess is a higher priority for our citizens is an expanded urban forest.
Thank you, Andrew. Any other comments or questions?
I'd also like to say that this is the first 4 chapters are really great. I do hope in the end that you have very clear strategic actions that you'd like both the city and the community and all of us to take. Because I think, you've outlined a great deal about how the tree canopy is a tremendous benefit to us all in so many ways. And I know from my own research that the really lasting effect of Salt Lake's early foundation, one of the earliest things was the pioneers actually planted a lot of trees. And some of those trees are, many of those trees are actually still with us. And they really provide for us not only shade and environmental impacts, but they also provide the urban design and imageability of our entire city. So this is a hugely important thing. It's a very long report and it's only the first 4 chapters. And so I also recommend that we have an executive summary that's pretty easy to read and has the takeaways that are critical to all of us about what we can do. I am concerned. In my own neighborhood, we have people who confuse low water use and trees. In the tree lawn, for example, where they've decided they're just going to put some rocks in and call it a day, and that is not. And they're going to be fighting for that in terms of how the city should respond, that we need to be able to have low water use. Well, and I also am concerned about when the city plants trees in the tree lawn and people don't water them, which is, I think, a big concern also. How do we actually implement some of these policies? We can plant a lot of trees, but we can't water them all. So these are issues that are, they're minor, but they're also major. If we are going to the early pioneers watered all those trees, and they watered them, with little canals, little tiny canals that they did on the little gutters that they planted. So, I mean, it is it's something we have to commit to as human beings, that this is an important part of our city, an important part of our future, and a part of actually making it all happen. I think you have the advantage, as you say in the report, of public support for these ideas. And I'm actually kind of sorry that you put forward a sort of technological solution when there's so many solutions that of the supported sidewalk, when there's so many solutions that are not very technological. They just, they're just someone planting a seed. So I think that this is a really important thing, and I'm glad that you've done it, and it looks good, and it is a very good report. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. To just briefly address that, you will see we have the chapter 5. So there will be an executive summary, and then chapter 5 is really kind of the meat of the plan, and that's the action plan, and it's very much this very broad range of strategies from kind of the highest level to the smallest level. And I think one of the benefit, and this also actually answers one of the questions about impact fees. In some places we have enormous park strips and we have ample space for trees. We just need to be careful about how we co-locate utilities. But there are certain areas like downtown where we've just sort of maxed out the space. And if we want trees that are the right scale to get the urban design, imageability, and the shade, we need to look at other solutions. But yeah, I'm excited to get your feedback. Right now I've been working with communities, just kind of introducing them to what we're doing to get their feedback, because the last thing I want to do is just, show up in a neighborhood and say, hey, let's plant trees and we're going to solve your problems. I mean, the idea is that this is very much going to be a collaborative effort, and we are looking at a range of kind of suggestions for funding strategies. But at the end of the day, a lot of this is going to come down to funding. Oh, and just quickly also to address the water, I've been working closely with public utilities, and we're working on developing some rebates and other things to help folks with the actual cost of watering trees is not very much, but it's the time or infrastructure to do it that can be a burden on folks.
So I have a question about the right of way, and you're talking about the utilities. We have 132-foot wide streets. What is the problem here? I mean, does it all have to go under the sidewalk?
So
this trees would go?
So as urban designer, I tear my hair about this on the regular, because, I feel like we have these enormous right of ways, and yet I end up arguing with people about a 5-foot sidewalk. So part of it is simply that people take the path of least resistance. So they'll put the utilities straight down the middle of the park strip, when it'd be better to locate them next to the curb to give the tree roots more room. In some places we have, unfortunately, most cities do vertical stacked utilities. We have so much space that we've just sort of spread them out wherever, and it depends obviously on the age of the street and so forth. But I think again, that's sort of part of getting people on the same page. If trees are seen as sort of like this aesthetic throwaway, then other utilities are more important. But if we can reframe it and say, no, this is also infrastructure, this is also providing services, so we have to make some choices, and we just have to make, some fairly simple trade-offs. Sometimes they cost more, sometimes they don't, to just make sure that we're doing the right thing and that we're going to get long-lived, healthy trees.
Thank you.
But
That's
yeah, I mean,
really way to put it. Thank you.
The right of way is a remarkable thing in Salt Lake City. That's what I will say.
So I know, Laura, you've been focusing on public right of ways, but I think one of the biggest things for heat islands are our massive parking lots. And it would be nice if this plan could somehow, especially with your point number 4 of recommendations to reviewers, and that somehow find a way to encourage not like impervious type of parking lot, they don't have to always be concrete or asphalt. I've seen many examples in other places where they've incorporated many other different types of materials that allow water infiltration, but somehow to encourage or focus on getting more trees in parking lots so they're not just on the perimeter, but that there's more trees within the parking lot to help with that urban heat would be really nice. I think that's one of the things I hate the most are big surface parking lots that just radiate heat that, could fry an egg or something. Okay, any other final questions or thoughts for Laura before we wrap up?
Just one other comment. It would be great if there was a way to incentivize preservation of existing trees and not just with a requirement to replant so many. I mean, if we could think creatively about setback waivers and other ways that they could creatively design the site so that we avoid the loss of the tree and not just a mitigation approach.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and just to both of those points, I will be coming back with a text amendment related to trees, and so that is some of where we can accomplish the issues related to parking lots as well as incentivizing tree preservation. So the plan will do some of that, and some of it will happen through a text amendment.
Well, I look forward to that. So thank you, Laura. Thank you for all your work on this.
Look, I want to be very careful about preserving that it is incentivizing and not a prohibition that makes development much more costly in certain circumstances. I think everybody on the commission is pretty sensitive to this, but I just want to be, I want us to not shoot ourselves in the foot with a badly worded change to the zoning statute that is we are preserving a tree at all costs. So I just want us to be very careful if we are involved at all in drafting that language.
No, and I think the way the approach is if you take a tree down, then you have to replace with so many. I don't think anybody would suggest you take that away, but think creatively about if you save the tree, then you'll get these additional benefits that you get to take advantage of. So it's
I love that idea.
Yeah, I think based on the level of this report we've seen so far, it's in good hands with Laura. So thank you all for tonight, and thank you for that presentation, Laura. I think we look forward to what you have to come back to us with.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for your perseverance tonight again. I think I have not presided over a meeting less than 3 hours yet, but the day may come. Anyway, we are adjourned, and I will see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks.